I'm Jack Nichols and welcome to FSR World Title.
Hello everybody and welcome to the Azure Grand Prix, the 7th round of the FSR World Championship here in 2021 and the second part of our FSR Triple Crown which kicked off just 2 weeks ago. It was Alex Siebel who took the victory at Indianapolis, his first ever career victory in the FSR World Championship, but this race on the Circuit d'Azur is set to be a completely different affair. We're going to go racing for 78 laps of an absolute street fight is going to be today. Absolutely can't wait to get this one underway. It's me, Ewan O'Leary, commentating for you today alongside Cam Rodger. And Cam, we had a fantastic Indianapolis Grand Prix last time out. We're now at the Azur Grand Prix, ready for what is set to be a very, very difficult race, a challenging race for everybody.
Yeah, it's going to be quite something. It's been a very interesting season so far. The early part of the season was really dominated by Michi Hoyer. Then that all spun around at the Dutch Grand Prix when Peter Burlak managed to get his win, and then Simičić had a great race. So it's been all sort of all over the place really in the last 4 races. I believe it's 4 different winners as well. So that has been quite a up and down season for these guys. And as you see today, 30th of May, we've got the Azur Grand Prix before we head to France in about 3 weeks' time to race at Le Mans. So yeah, getting towards this second half of the championship now, and it's really getting towards that stage where we're going to be starting to look at who are the main contenders. And at the moment in the championship, it is Jani Simičić leading the way by only 9 points from Michi Hoyer. So I think it's going to be a pretty close end to the season.
Yeah, it absolutely is. The championship standings still absolutely wide open in terms of the Triple Crown standings as well. Alex Siebel is currently leading that one ahead of Simičić and Hoyer. That was the finishing order from Indianapolis. In 4th place, Mohamed Patel, then Jonas Braxot in 5th. So, yeah, we'll update you on those Triple Crown standings as the Triple Crown ends in 3 weeks' time at Le Mans. So, yeah, looking forward to that. But we're going to jump towards qualifying now for the Azur Grand Prix. Just over 8 minutes left in this session at the moment. The first few drivers setting the first few sector times. This is Peter Burlak getting himself set up for a time a little bit later on. But this, arguably, Cam, is going to be the most important qualifying session of all of them. It's so difficult to overtake around this circuit. You can see just on board with Hoyer right now how narrow it is. It's really difficult to go side by side, really difficult to get past anybody as well. So getting track position is going to be absolutely vital in this session.
Yeah, it's going to be very important indeed. You never know what's going to happen in the race, but one thing that you do know is it's going to be a little bit difficult to overtake, especially when you're on the same tyres. When there's a tyre differential, it will certainly be a bit possible, but it's going to be so difficult and so intense during the race. You really want to make your life easier by getting a really good grid position. Michi Hoyer's had quite a few pole positions already this season, especially in that early part of the season, as you mentioned, when he got, well, he should have really won that race in Zandvoort as well, so he could have won 4 races, but instead he's won 3. And he's looking very good in the qualifying so far this season, although he struggled the last couple of races. Now coming through this final section, he's going a bit wide then to Raskas. Now into the final corner. Where is he going to put himself? Dennis Jordan is at the top with a 9.9, but Mocek goes with a 0.7. Where can Michi Hoyer put himself? He goes up into 5th, 6/10 off, so still some work to do for him.
Yeah, just a little bit of work for him still to do in this one. So, yeah, we'll see where he comes out at the end of it. But here is Colin Spork over the line right now. Purple in Sector 1 and not bad in Sector 2 or 3 either. 3rd place for him at the moment. Peter Burlak, race winner from a couple of rounds ago at the Dutch Grand Prix. Comes over the line right now and he is up to 3rd as well. Simičić is out there on a lap time at the moment, as well as Noah Roivers, who's coming through the final corner. It's so narrow and so difficult to thread the car through some of these corners. Roivers comes over the line and he's into 9th place at the moment, just behind Michi Hoyer. Here's Mohamed Patel, who put in a good performance at Indianapolis.
and he's going to put himself there in 14th, but still plenty to be improved for him.
Yeah, absolutely. I think a lot of these guys will be feeling the same, actually. There's so many places where you can make up time around here, and so many places where you can lose it all as well. So we're on board with Zooks, excuse me, substituting in for one of the Maguires anyway. At the moment, into the or across the line, he goes 13th position for the moment. Here's Daniel Kish, who hasn't set a lap time just yet, but the Zancho driver is going to get himself on the board with just over 4 minutes to go with his second lap time, or the second round of times anyway. Just kisses the wall on the right hand side, actually, if you'll excuse the pun, but it's 17th place for him at the moment. Not a lot of purple sectors coming in at the moment, though. I'd expect this circuit to be getting faster, these guys to be getting faster as well a little bit, but it doesn't seem that's the case at the moment.
Yeah, it's a very difficult track, though. You have to remember, it's so easy to make a little mistake. Might be the shortest physical circuit of the season, but it's certainly one of the more difficult ones as well. As Alex Siebel, last race winner, only there in 8th place. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see him jumping up the times a little bit later on as we come to Noah Roivers, who just won the pro race earlier on. So he's done a really good job there, but he has already done a 63 lap race, and now he's coming back for another 78 laps. So he's going to be really tired out. And where's he going to put himself on the grid? He's going to stay there in 11th place at the moment.
Yeah, I guess if you add in all the qualifying out laps, in laps and whatever, then he's pushing towards 150 laps, and that doesn't even... Oh, as Simoncic front left wheel off. That just shows how easy it is to do there at the Nouvelle Chicane. Goodness me. Simoncic was going green in the first sector, Burliak likewise, but he looks like he's slowed down as well. It's a tricky circuit and very easy to turn yourself in a little bit too early as Colin Spork comes over the line right now. Ooh. He's now to the front of the order. One of the only improvements we've seen on this second round of times, and it's fantastic from Sport. 9.7 puts himself 16 thousandths of a second, but on the pole position at the moment at the expense of David Mocek. That's a great lap from Spork.
And Spork, remember, he was only a couple of thousandths of a second off pole position in Indianapolis as well. And he's now got past Mocek by only 16 thousandths of a second, so he certainly knows how to keep it close up at the front of the field, and that would be quite good. He only joined a couple of races ago. I think it was that Zandvoort race, actually. That was his first race of the season, where he actually had a pretty decent qualifying there as well, up inside the top 10. But first of all, let's see where Sadly can put himself. He is going to jump up into 11th place there for the moment. But yeah, Spork having quite a good session so far, and still one more lap to go for him.
Yeah, absolutely. He's going to be pushing a little bit fine, but he is going to get there in good time to be able to put in his final lap of the session. This is Dennis Jordan's final lap of the session, by the way. He's not been on the podium yet. He has been on the podium 2 times so far this season, but I didn't remember them for whatever reason. Not had the greatest season, though. Did finish outside the points on one occasion. We have hit the halfway point now, by the way, which is why these statistics are becoming more important as we go on. But he's purple in the middle sector, clearly putting a good lap time in right now. Just got the final one to go. A little bit messy through there, but it is tricky. Out of the final corner he comes, and over the line. Where's it going to be? It's to the front for Dennis Jordan by 1/10 of a second. We'll see what Spork and Mocek can answer to that.
Yeah, and I can tell you that that's Dennis Jordan done as well. Remember, he can do nothing more. But I can tell you from practice times, it is possible to get down way low into the 1 minute 9s. However, it is so difficult to string all those sectors together, especially when you're in this pressure environment and you're really trying to make something happen. But we're now seeing Brackshot come through. He's actually not improved there in that middle sector, so it seems that these drivers are struggling to get a lap down, but he's only got 2 corners to go.
Yeah, here he comes out of the final corner right now. Lots of improvements going on. It's about to get very fast and furious towards the end of this session. Brackstock over the line right now. Where's this going to put him? Nowhere of an improvement. Certainly over the line for Alex Siebel as well. Last week's race winner. Only 10th for him so far. He's not going to slip down much more than that, but it's still a disappointing drive. Also disappointing for Michi Hoyer so far, who's in 13th position, a long way down. We're watching Mohamed Patel, though, because he could well improve right now as well into the Nouvelle Chicane, where we saw Simoncic clip a wheel off a little bit earlier on. Very, very easy to get things wrong through there. Mocek's session is over. He can't improve on his lap time. Simoncic doesn't look like he's improving by very much either. Mohamed Patel, bit of a kiss on the wall on the right-hand side there, and cutting it very fine once again, and a slide through there. That's going to be the end of his lap. He spins around. Simoncic comes across the line. He's only 4th place. He can't improve either. Robin Panzer into the outside wall at the back. That is a very fast corner. I'm afraid he's just misjudged it, got it wrong, and goes for a spin as well. Finally, Michi Hoyer 8/10 away at the moment. He looks like he's going a lot better on this lap, though. His first lap was very, very scruffy. Wasn't able to do anything better in the second lap. So maybe the third and final lap will be the charm for him. Out of the final corner he goes. He's going to need a big improvement right now. Over the line he goes. Where's it going to be? It's only 11th for Michi Hoyer, and that is going to be very, very damaging to his race indeed. Petr Berliak moves up ahead of Jurnej Simoncic into 4th place, but Michi Hoyer down in 11th with his main championship rival Jurnej Simoncic up in 5th.
Yeah, nice result for those guys. And also, Ibrahim Khan there getting up into 8th place at the end. So there's a couple of really good performers. Robin Panzer up in 6th as well. But then we've also got some struggling guys like Michi Hoyer and Alex Siebel. So it looks like it's going to be a pretty interesting race, to be honest. So it's a bit of a mixed up grid.
Yeah, absolutely. Love a good mixed-up grid. Should be a good race to be watching, certainly. But Dennis Jordan has taken his 2nd ever FSR World Championship pole position ahead of Colin Spork, who did a fantastic drive. Thought he was going to get it, but he was just denied at the very end. Darren Mocek not too far behind. Petr Berliak in 4th ahead of Jurnej Simoncic in 5th. But we've seen how tricky this circuit is for our own eyes at the moment, but we haven't had quite an on-board lap from one of these drivers yet. So let's have a look at Michi Hoyer's guide to the Azure circuit.
This is Formula Sim Racing. My name is Michi Hoyer. I welcome you guys to the track presentation for round 7 of the Formula Sim Racing 2021 Championship. We are at the famous street circuit of Circuit d'Azur for the Azur Grand Prix here on the Formula Sim Racing Championship. I take you around a flying lap on those street circuits. So into turn 1, heavy braking zone, Sandevot, very important you get the traction and power down for the sprint up towards the hill, towards the casino. Into turn 3 and 4, a double left-hand apex. Want to stay considerably tight to the walls at all time. Over the crest 1, over the crest 2, the rear can become a bit slidey and dodgy. Into Mirabeau, stay tight and close to the barriers at all time. The Fairmont hairpin, tightest and slowest circuit of the year, part of the circuit, and also slowest corner of the year. Into the tunnel we go, the back straight so to say, into 6th gear, and then another heavy braking zone into 2nd gear for the harbour chicane. Stay tight at all times. The rear wants to slide around on the exit, so traction is important. Fine tune the balance through Tabak in the first piston chicane, 2nd piston chicane. Don't touch that curb too hard, and then wide and tight into Raskas. A little bit of wall banging right here. Final turn, a little bit of slidiness, and that is 1 lap here around the circuit of Circuit d'Azur. So we will see and find out whether drivers can keep it out of the wall. Will be tight, will be interesting, will be a very difficult race.
Welcome back to the Azur Grand Prix. That was a lap guide to the Circuit d'Azur with Michi Hoyer, who'll be starting 11th behind a lot of very important drivers in this race. Very much looking forward to it, though. Maybe not because of the on-track action that we're about to see, but mainly because of the strategy here, Cam. It really is up in the air, and we don't actually know what the best idea is actually going to be throughout this, and that's a fantastic thing.
Yeah, that's the craziest thing with this track as well is everyone's like, oh yeah, qualifying, so important, all this sort of stuff. But there's 78 laps here. That's 78 times you've got to go through all of these tricky little corners, and it's so easy to make a mistake. We saw in qualifying, especially on that final run, there was so many people who were sort of making mistakes and crashing on those final laps. And with 78 laps, all the pressure, the intensity, you saw how close it was with the lap times. I think some of the drivers are going to really struggle to get to the end of this race.
Yeah, absolutely. It's going to be very, very tricky. I think we are going to see a lot of retirements as well. 19 drivers are going to start this one, I believe. I'd be surprised if there are 10 at the end, although there may just be enough to give out all the points because, yeah, keeping it out of the barriers is going to be the challenge. But that also means that throughout the start of this race, we are going to see a bit of a slower pace. We're in the mid-9s there in qualifying, but we are going to be a good maybe 5 seconds slower at the start of this race. Just people trying to get to the end and conserve their fuel, conserve their tyres and everything like that as well.
Yeah, I think the tyres is really the biggest factor. So with the fuel, as you've seen for most of the races this season, it's been a 3-stop strategy. So you have 3 full tanks and you've got sort of a half tank for your final stint in the race. But this, because it's basically a shorter distance due to it basically being a slower average speed. So it's only 260 kilometers. So it's 40 kilometers or 45 kilometers less than a normal race. And this means it is pretty much bang on 3 stints. So it's going to be a 2-stop race. And that means because of the tyre rule as well, with having to use 2 sets of the hards, it's pretty much going to be soft, hard, hard, or whichever order you want to do it in. So there's going to be a little bit of leeway with the strategy if someone wants to try a 3-stop, but I think it's going to be a little bit difficult for someone to do anything crazy, because 78 divided by 3 is 26, and 26 laps is pretty much what you're going to be getting on your average stint.
Yeah, but it's just a case of getting those tyres to the end of that and whether you can actually or not. If you are forced onto a 3-stop, then obviously you're going to have to do a fair amount of overtaking. That's going to be difficult. But Dennis Jordan won't have to do any off of the start. He's leading the pack away ahead of Colin Spork in second place. David Mocek with a fantastic qualifying performance to get third ahead of Petr Burliak. Then it's 2-time champion Jone Simicic ahead of his teammate Robin Pantar. Mohamed Patel for Williams is in 7th ahead of Ibrahim Khan, who got a great lap in right at the very end to get himself into 8th position ahead of Jonas Braksok, who's in 9th, and Alex Siebel, 2 weeks ago's race winner, rounding out the top 10. Michi Hoyer, 2nd place in the championship, but I'm afraid 11th place in the standings ahead of Danny van der Neet in 12th. Tom Savely is 13th ahead of Noah Roivers, who won Pro just about an hour ago. Stephen Michaels is in 15th ahead of Zolt Zux, who's standing in for Adam Maguire for HM Engineering. Danny Kish is in 17th position ahead of the 2 Epic Racing cars of Ricardo Costa and Geoffrey Fournier to round off the 19-car grid for the Azure Grand Prix. The 7th race of the FSR World Championship set to get underway for 2021. We're in the second half of the season now, and only 9 points separate Jone Simicic and Michi Hoyer, but there are 6 positions between them in this race. Let's have a look at these tyres then as we're on the formation lap. Dennis Jordan is leading them away. We were just conversing while Michi Hoyer was doing his lap for everybody on the stream. Me and Cam were talking about the tyre strategy for these guys. I actually thought or predicted that Dennis Jordan might go on the hards here straight away. You thought Colin Sport would be on the softs, but this is a lot more soft runners than I was expecting, it has to be said. At least the top 2 are going for it so far.
Yeah, the tyres do have to sort of update during the first 30 seconds, but if this is correct, Dennis Jordan and Colin Sport on the soft, with pretty much everyone behind them on the hards, I think that is an interesting strategy, because those 2 are going to pull away. The softs are definitely in the region, of maybe even a second a lap quicker, especially in the first sort of 10 laps or so. They might be about a second a lap quicker. It does depend, obviously, how much tyre saving, as we mentioned, that they are going to do. Because of the way it works, you're going so much slower average speed. You don't have as much aero, so you use a lot more of the tyres. And with you also going slower, there's less drag, etc. So you actually go a lot further on your fuel distance as well. So all of that means that the tyres are just working so much harder on this track, and the softs will die at the end of the stint if you're not too careful. So you can just see here Dennis Jordan as well trying to save as much fuel, going as slow as he can on this formation lap. But I think with all those guys on the hards, it's certainly going to be a bit of a race for these 2 at the front to try and pull away.
Yeah, absolutely. Working together would normally be what I would mention at this point. However, there won't be much working together because it's difficult to overtake anyway. You can't really get in each other's way. So Dennis Jordan and Colin Spork line up then on the front row of the grid. To be David Mocek behind them in 3rd as we get a look at these guys lined up on the grid here in a few moments' time. There they are. Mocek has got Yoni Simicic directly behind him and Petr Berliak alongside him on the left-hand side as well. The final few drivers are pulling themselves into position on the grid, and we're ready to go racing for 78 laps around the Circuit d'Azur. The Azur Grand Prix is now underway. Dennis Jordan, good start on the inside of the front row. Colin Spock tucks in immediately to defend his second position, and he does so successfully. It's free wide in the background between Mocek, Simicic and Berliak, and Berliak's already lost his front wing. There's chaos in the background. Robin Pantar's gone flying up through the air, and it's a very unfortunate start for a lot of guys in the background there. Robin Pantar with Mohammed Patel, both of them out of the race. Absolute chaos on the run up to Casino Square for the first time. Loads and loads of drivers out. Stephen Michaels also out of this race. Mitchy Hoyer's been caught up in that. He's 16th. Yoni Simicic somehow able to avoid everything. He's in 4th right now, but what a chaotic start that was. At least 4 cars could be out of the race already.
And that's really big for the championship as well. Mitchy Hoyer there, he was only 9 points behind Yoni Simicic. Simicic up there in 4th. This could be a really big swing in Simicic's favour if he can get towards the end of the race. We'll try and get you a couple of replays, but that is quite a big factor for the championship, I think. Petr Berliak there, he's going to have to come into the pit lane. He's got no front wing, and it seemed like they tried to go 3 wide in turn 1, which isn't always the best thing.
No, absolutely not. We'll see who actually instigated that one, but I think there's going to be a few arguments about that one at the end of the race. Petr Berliak into the pit lane then. No front wing on the front of his car. The 2 Epic Racing cars have had a fantastic start, by the way, to get themselves both inside the top 10. But here we go, on board with Stephen Michaels. Watch the carnage unfold. Who is that flipping through there? Danny van der Neep didn't have a very good time of things. Here's Mitchy Hoyer, gets caught on somebody and had to run over somebody's front wing, and then you see that's Robin Pantar flying through the air. He goes to the right hand side to try and avoid, but I'm afraid that gap closed very, very quickly indeed, and that was the end of his race. This is going to be a little bit sickening to watch as well. Robin Pantar a bit squashed going up towards Casino Square. An absolute mess for all of these guys, I'm afraid. We've got 4 drivers already out, including Mitchy Hoyer, 2nd place in the championship coming in. Petr Berliak has been halted by this. He was 4th place in the championship coming in. Really needed to start making inroads into Yoni Simicic if he wanted to win a 2nd FSR World Championship, but his task has been made very, very difficult indeed by that opening incident.
Yeah, not nice indeed. Unfortunately, the replay was just a little bit too further forward, really. It started, as you saw, there was a 3 wide incident. From that view, it was really difficult to see, actually, if it was maybe Berliak's fault, or I think it was Mocek in the middle there. Not really too sure if you can get a fault from that one, at least from the angle that we saw straight away. So bit of a difficult one there, but an unfortunate situation, because once a couple of cars at the front of the field crash, the people behind don't really have anywhere to go, and sure, they can brake and all that. But you saw, I think it was with that Stephen Michaels one, he obviously slowed down, but then he got hit from behind as well. So very difficult situation for some of these drivers. But someone who's come out really well from that is Ibrahim Khan. He's got himself up into the top 5. He hasn't really been close to the points so far this season, so this could be a really good race for him.
Yeah, he's having a fantastic weekend, actually. He put the Zancho GTE car on pole for the VEC 24 Hours of Le Mans next weekend, and that was just yesterday. Put in a great lap to do that. And so, yeah, he's in fantastic form, as we know. He's on board with Petr Berliak, by the way, who instigated this 3 wide moment, I wonder, because you don't really want to be going 3 wide through this course. So, outside of David Mocek, there he is on the right-hand side. Does Simicic stick it down the inside of his teammate there to cause this? I'm not entirely sure. Let's get a view from David Mocek to see what happened. The lights go out now. Is there going to be a Burst eSport car on our right-hand side? A dive from Simicic? Yes, there is. Very, very aggressive from the 2-time champion, and 3 wide through Sandoval doesn't often work. I'm afraid it didn't on that occasion. Mocek was able to hold on to 3rd place in that one, actually, but Simicic backed off to give him the space again. Was that a little bit too aggressive from Simicic, or was he within his rights to go down the inside there?
Difficult one indeed. I mean, he was certainly able to. He got himself alongside there, but 3 wide's never going to work. Difficult one, because Berliak was also trying to send it around the outside a little bit. Mocek didn't really have anywhere to go. You'd have to look at it from sort of a helicopter angle as well, but that one could be an interesting one to look at after the race. Certainly aggressive from pretty much all 3 of the drivers there, and unfortunately it's ended with, a number of other drivers having DNFs.
Yeah, I'm afraid it has. Michi Hoyer, Mohamed Patel, Stephen Michaels all out of this race early on. Robin Panzer already 2 laps down and exiting the pit lane again right now. Nearly 2.5 laps down now. So it's not been a good start to the race for him either. But Dennis Jordan has converted his pole position to a race lead after 4 laps of the Azur Grand Prix. Colin Spork is just under 1 second behind David Mocek, 2.7 behind Colin Spork, and he's actually left Simoncic behind by 2.4 seconds. Not sure if there's damage involved with the World Champion's car right now, or whether this is just the pace that he is happy to run at. Here's Riccardo Costa, by the way, alongside Geoffrey Fournier. Made a fantastic start early on in this race. That was very sideways through the right-hander at turn 3 and 4. But, yeah, fantastic start for Epic Racing. 8th and 9th for those guys at the moment. And we're about to get a view now on how easy it is to overtake, or how difficult it is to overtake, because it's going to be soft tyres versus hard tyres with Braxtock versus Costa. And is the tyre difference basically going to be enough for people to actually make a move on this circuit?
Yeah, so I was in the pro race earlier, and it was certainly possible when you had softs in the car ahead of you had hards. The hards are quite tricky, really. They're very sort of consistent and they last well, but they don't quite have that just raw grip and raw ability. And as you say, we're going to see that with Costa when he gets there. But the issue is that the straights really aren't quite long enough, so you do have to be very close. But because we're such low speed in a lot of these corners, the dirtier isn't actually so bad, really. So it's certainly possible, but you do have to get a bit of a run and get a bit of momentum going to make that happen.
Of course, a mistake might help as well. If you can get one from the car in front, but this is a little bit backwards at the moment because Geoffrey Fournier on the softs is defending from Tom Saville, the New Zealander, just behind him on the hard compound tyres. This is a battle for 9th place, going on a couple of seconds behind the battle between Braxtock and Costa, going through the double right-hander here at Poitiers, right next to the ocean, the Mediterranean Sea, and through the iconic tunnel, which almost gives this circuit its character, really. One of the only circuits in the world, really, where you have to go under some stuff throughout the circuit, as these guys head now towards the final sector. To back first of all, then the swimming pool and the slightly faster version of the chicane that is used these days, bouncing across the curbs just a little bit. And yeah, Saville is going to be working on the back of Geoffrey Fournier right now. See if there maybe is a move into turn 1, maybe up the hill. But is there a good enough run for Saville? It doesn't look like it for the moment. Not entirely sure if turn 1 or turn 3 is actually going to be a better call for overtaking here, because there's almost a longer section flat out going up the hill here towards the left-hander.
Yeah, that's probably ironically, it's probably one of the longest runs is actually from that turn 1 up to turn 3 at the, I can't remember what it's called now, Massenet, the long left-hander. But it's really difficult because there's all those kinks, and also turn 1 is actually a really difficult corner, just the way it is, it sort of pinches you. So it is a little bit difficult to make an overtake, and especially because that kink of turn 2 up the hill, you can't really get your car in a good position, but it's certainly possible once again. And it's just interesting here actually to see that Sadly is able to hold on despite being on those hard compound tyres, which just shows you maybe Epic don't quite have the raw pace today. And also just with this season, they've generally been qualifying nearer the back, but they kept it clean in that first few laps and they've got themselves into a really good position. So let's see if they can get some points today.
It would be their first point-scoring finish of the entire season so far, by the way. They haven't scored a single point so far. Riccardo Costa has only been able to get to the end of 2 races. Geoffrey Fournier only at the end of 3. Yeah, that would be a fantastic result for them if they were to be able to get to the finish in 8th and 9th, which they're at the moment. They will move up to 10th place in the team standings ahead of Zancho, who are still stuck on 5. However, Ibrahim Khan's in the top 10 right now and will be scoring points. So it would all shuffle in the teams and drivers as things stand. With Ewan Simoncic in 4th place, his nearest rival Michi Hoyer not finishing the race. He would extend his championship lead to a good 21 points by the end of this. But let's take a look on board with Riccardo Costa here. How on earth did he get through the first lap chaos? There's Danny Kisher on the outside line, by the way, moving through nicely. Another Edge eSports car on the right-hand side, and here is Noah Roivers trying to get past his teammate Danny van der Neet, who's flipping through the air. Good avoidance once again from Riccardo Costa, and then he's about to take 3 in 1 and another one down the inside there. So there's 5 cars in the space of a very quick succession. That was fantastic avoiding driving actually there from Riccardo Costa.
Yeah, he took it nice and gently. He didn't go rushing into those situations. He just sort of lets the situation unfold, and then he seemed to pick the best line. So that seemed to work out pretty well for him. So fair play. Managed to get himself up into a really nice position.
Yeah, absolutely. 8th place at the moment, just dropping back a little bit from Jonas Braksuk right now, who is in 6th place and on a streak of 4 point scoring finishes in a row. Let's not forget last season he finished in the points in 9 out of the 10 races so far. He's on course to be doing 11 out of 12 this season. And of course last season's was due to a DNF. I think it was quite an unlucky one from memory as well. So yeah, arguably even more unlucky than just finishing 11th, which is what's happened to him, I'm afraid, in the second round when we visited the Portuguese Grand Prix, which seems like a lifetime ago already, since we're already at round 7. But here's Ibrahim Khan on the back of Jurne Simoncic. The gap between Simoncic and Rodger right now, by the way, is down below 2 seconds for the first time since the very opening laps, and considering that one went out to about 2.5 seconds, Simoncic is doing a good job to pull that one back now. He's seemingly either finding a bit of pace or pacing himself well and starting to get into this stint nicely now.
Yeah, he's doing a really good job. And this is that sort of middle part of the stint now where you need to really sort of think about what you're going to do now. Are you going to continue, excuse me, are you going to continue with some maybe fuel saving, tyre saving? Are you going to try and push? This is really where you're going to work it out, so work backwards from your pit stop. And as we mentioned, 26 laps is probably the magic number, so that's really what they're going to be trying to hit. But if you want to overtake in the pit stops, you're going to have to try something a little bit different.
Yeah, absolutely. Undercut's quite difficult around here as well, considering we're expecting 2 stop races. And there's only 1 lap where you can really pit if you're doing that, because as Cam mentioned earlier, 3:26 is 78, and that's what we're expecting from these guys. But Ibrahim Khan seems pretty equal to the pace being set by Jurne Simoncic. I'm afraid his teammate Danny Kish has not had such a great day of things. He is now out of the Azure Grand Prix, so we're up to 4 retirements already, and that is a real shame to see for him. Not sure if it was a crash or just a retirement in the pit lane for Kish, but he either way is now retired from the race. Tom Savely still trying to get through on Jeffrey Fournier, who pulls to the left-hand side right now and tries to break the slipstream maybe, but certainly under a lot of pressure from Savely, who got a wash of dirty air and nearly sent into the outside wall at turn 1 there.
Yeah, got to be careful. We've seen what can happen on that outside wall. You saw Burlak in that first corner, unfortunately getting
nearly 5 seconds up to his teammate Costa, and Braksuk still in that fight with him. Savely certainly looking like a faster driver than the Frenchman at the moment, though. So yeah, we'll see if he can close that gap maybe. But Noah Roivers is getting involved in this battle as well. He's just 1.5 seconds adrift as things stand for Netrex. I'm afraid his teammate, despite his early troubles, actually, Danny van der Neet, has continued on and seemingly avoided damage in the opening lap calamity that he had. You saw him strewn across the road in the run up to the Massenet corner and the Casino Square. So yeah, he's still going, too far behind Zooks in a battle for 12th position. So there are a couple of battles going on, but obviously it's very, very difficult to overtake, and we're expecting most of the positional changes to come in the pit stops really, rather than on the circuit.
Yeah, it certainly looks like it's going to be possible though, but it is obviously going to need to be helped, I should say, by a tiny mistake here or there. But it's interesting that Sadly is actually really able to hold on with Jeff Fournier here, because as I mentioned, there's a good maybe half a second a lap between these drivers. You can see Mrocek, he's already 7 seconds behind Spork in about 12 laps. So that's, yeah, looking about maybe just a bit over half a second a lap difference between the tyres. And in this instance, Sadly is able to overcome that with the difference of speed to Jeff Fournier. So I don't think Fournier's quite got the speed as we speak, because he's also dropped off 5 seconds from Riccardo Costa.
Yeah, absolutely. Still running nose to tail, these two on our screens right now. A little bit of a slide through the Nouvelle chicane coming out of that section. but no way of getting through on Fournier right now. He's continuing to lose time to his teammate, over 5 seconds now, and that time is going up at an increasing rate. He's losing time at an increasing rate as things stand. Coming through the final corner right now as well. Bit of a slide for everybody, but it always does look a little bit strange from that angle. Into turn 1 they go, and Savali nowhere near close enough here once again. Interesting to see that Peter Berliak is in 14th position. He's just under 15 seconds behind. This battle here between Zooks and Van der Neet is fairly close between these two as well, but Berliak's got a long road to recovery now, really. He pitted at the end of lap 1 with that front wing damage, and of course he's going to have to work his way through the field, mostly on the circuit as well. So you get the feeling that it's going to be a long afternoon for the 2015 World Champion, but if he wants to be World Champion again, then he's going to have to get as many points as he can from this.
Yeah, and I think if he stays in it long enough, he might be able to nick himself a couple of points by the end of the race. So he just needs to stay in it, see what happens. He is only P14, so he doesn't need too many issues or mistakes from the cars ahead for him to be actually able to get, as I said, a couple of points from this race. So if he can, persevere with this and stay towards the end of the race, it might actually work out to be quite good for him.
Yeah, we'll see if that does end up being the case. I feel like he might be able to get to the lower end of the points as well, but obviously there's a long race to go, and still many things to happen, as now Tom Savali does finally get through on Geoffrey Fournier. Let's see if that was an actual overtake or if Fournier just let him through. Here's Tom Savali right on the back of the Frenchman, just in front of him, and we'll see. Oh, there's a hit on the wall from Fournier, and that was all the invitation that the New Zealander needed to get right round the outside, down the front straight. Into turn 1 he goes, and that's exactly what we're talking about. Just keep probing, keep waiting for that mistake, and eventually it will come.
Yeah, that's really the hardest thing about this track, is not making mistakes and not hitting the walls. It's so easy, even just on this chicane here on that left-hander, so easy just to clip the wall. And to back coming up here, you've got the inside apex you could clip, you can smash into the outside. It just goes on and on with all these barriers so close to you. It's absolutely unforgiving if you make just the tiniest mistake. And as you saw there with Fournier, he just understeered that a little bit too much, hits the wall, and then he lost that position. And I wouldn't be surprised if Sadly gets up the road and pulls away a little bit.
Speaking of understeer, there was quite a lot for Fournier's teammate there, Ricardo Costa, nearly going into the outside wall through Anthony Noakes, but nothing really doing. No, Roivers looks like he's very close to the back of Fournier, and the same thing may have happened again. Looks like they might have been side by side into turn 1 there, but Fournier holds on for the moment. Roivers maybe going to run out of the first corner up the hill, but it does get quite narrow there, and there's no real way through for him, so it looks like Roivers is still behind, but Fournier holding on to 10th place, and is now starting to lose a fair amount of time to Tom Savali, who's now going to probably skip up the road. But this is the battle for 7th on our screen right now. Braxop versus Costa, and still in the same order that they were before. There is going to reach a point where the soft tyres are not really as good as the hards anymore. It may be that we are reaching that point right now, because Fournier does seem to be struggling, even though Costa is more than holding his own against Braxop. Fournier, for whatever reason, is starting to lose a lot more pace.
Yeah, he is. As we mentioned, he's maybe not the quickest guy on the field anyway, but he may be struggling here a little bit. He could have some damage, to be honest, because normally he's obviously a little bit closer to Costa, but he is dropping off just a little bit now, and I wouldn't be surprised if Roivers is going to get past him in the next few laps. But as you mentioned, with the pit stop sequence, you really have to stay at it unless you want to pit now and commit to doing a 3-stop strategy. You're just going to have to stay in it, and even if you do maybe need to change a little bit, you can change your front wing at the pit stop, that sort of stuff. You are going to have to wait until that pit stop in about 10 laps time.
This is Fournier's 22nd FSR World Championship race, by the way, which is more than I thought, actually, more experienced than I'd quite realised. But he got a podium 2 years ago now at the French Grand Prix, which we'll be heading to in 3 weeks' time. It was the 3rd place on that day, but that wasn't at the Le Mans circuit. It was Paul Ricard that day, as now maybe Roivers tried to get... Oh, sorry.
Ibrahim
Khan out of the race. Wheel off, I'm afraid. And it looks like he has been into the barriers somewhere. Let's have a look. at what happened to the man who was running in 5th position right behind Ewan Simicic into the swimming pool section. We don't see accidents happen very often there anymore, but just a slight misjudgment, and Ibrahim Khan is out of this race.
Yeah, just misjudged that first apex, bounced off in a bit of a ping-pong action. Unfortunately there, he is going to be out of that race, and that Zancho has only got one wheel left on its wagon, so that is not what he would have wanted to see, and hopefully no one actually got caught up in that debris. But that's put Alex Siebel up into the top 5 now. He'll be pretty happy with that, because he struggled a bit in the qualifying session, but now getting up there into the top 5.
Speaking of Siebel, though, I bet he would have to avoid Ibrahim Khan's car there, because it did go back onto the racing line. We can't blame Khan very much for it, because he did only have one wheel on, as you say, and also there's not much braking performance that you can actually do. There's only so much you can do with only one wheel on your car, and so Khan unfortunately rolling down back onto the circuit again, and I think Siebel might have had to do a bit of avoiding action on that occasion. But yeah, he's into 5th place now, and 7.6 seconds behind Ewan Simicic. Came into the day about 40-odd points behind Simicic in the... 28 points behind Simicic in the standings. So Siebel is not out of this just for the moment. He will be losing an extra 2 right now as things stand. But that's not the closest battle going on the circuit. These two are now both in the points, Geoffrey Fournier and Noah Roivers. I think Siebel will be pleased with how things have gone so far. As you said, started this race in 10th place, and to have got through the opening lap chaos, to be in 5th place right now, to be able to avoid that kind of chaos as well, he will be quite pleased with things, I would imagine.
Yeah, he would indeed. Sometimes you just got to stay out of trouble, and you can see Burlak as well already up into 13th place. He's just a few positions away from the points, and that's also only around 15 seconds. So if he stays there, there's 60 laps to go. If he stays there, he should be able to get himself towards those points with some good pace, because he's actually caught up Danny Van Den Eet about 7 or 8 seconds already. So he's doing a good job there. But someone also doing a good job, as we're mentioning, is Noah Roivers, up into the top 10 now. He obviously knows his way around this circuit, winning the pro race earlier. He had a really good race back in Zandvoort, I believe. It was about 6th place he got in the race there. So he does know what he's doing at the highest level, really improving. And now it looks like he's getting just that little bit closer to Geoffrey Fournier.
Yep, he is indeed. I want to go up to the leaders, though, since that Noah Roivers doesn't look like he's going to get through for the moment. We're not too far away from crunch time in terms of this strategy. Are these guys going to make 26 laps on fuel or not? We're expecting them to be able to, but what are they going to do when we get there? Dennis Jordan and Colin Spork are expected to go on 2 hard compound tyre stints to the end of this race. However, if you are in the seat of David Mojcik or Ewan Simicic right now, would you put a set of soft tyres on? Would you hold out on the hards and use the softs a little bit later on? I'm not entirely sure which one will be most beneficial for those guys running in 3rd and 4th right now.
I think it depends really what the traffic situation is like, where they're going to be making their pit stop. If they're going to come out in some clean air, they might as well take the softs and fill that clean air and make a lot of progress then. But if it looks like there's going to be a bit of traffic or whatever, you might as well just take the hards again and then try again in the final stint to get that clean air. And it's going to be a bit of a weird strategy in that regard, because you're not really going to know what to do pretty much until the lap before you pit.
Speaking of weird strategy, Ricardo Costa's into the pit lane after only 19 laps. So let's see what this is all about. Stopping once again, and he's on the soft tyres once again. Looking to go aggressive in this race, and I absolutely love that. Hopefully we'll be able to see him getting up the order, doing some overtaking throughout this race. Peter Burlak's going to be praying that he can get out in front of Costa here. There he goes on the right-hand side, excuse me. So Burlak is already into 12th place and knocking on the doors of at some points here, at least lower end points, as Costa's smoking quite badly coming out of the pit lane there, but that is sort of to be expected with these engines. So nothing really to worry about for those guys, but surely, my next point might be a little bit ruined by Costa coming into the pit lane a little bit early, but surely most people are going to be pitting on lap 26, so whatever kind of air you do come out in, it's going to be clean air for these guys if everybody's coming into the pit lane. But it looks like Simicic's now really starting to find his feet. Mojcik may be struggling a little bit, and Simicic's now really starting to apply the pressure.
Yeah, it's a weird one from Costa because he only needed to stay out. Oh, something's just going a bit wide there, getting on the marbles and struggling to make it around that corner. But it's a bit weird because Costa only needed to go about 6-7 more laps and then he could do the 2-stop. So he is obviously going to be trying this 3-stop strategy. We're going to find out, is it going to work? Is he going to have the pace to pull it off? But also, is there going to be enough time with the strategy? Because an interesting point here is, as we'll discuss this, as Fournier comes into pit lane as well, because of the shortness of the pit lane, the teams are actually sharing pit boxes this weekend. So normally, each individual driver in the World Championship has their own pit box. So they can pit at the same time as their teammate. But now, just for this race, because it's so small, there aren't enough pit boxes, they have to share, which means if you don't have a big enough gap between you and your teammate, you are going to have to pit on different laps. And as we mentioned, with it being 26 laps times 3, then that's going to be quite difficult to find a gap.
No, Royver's DNF from the race right now. Looks like that might have happened in the final sector. Quite possible. Oh, sorry, the first sector maybe. Certainly mid part of the lap. Here we are coming up towards the hairpin section. Here it is at the left-hander. What's going to happen here for Noah Roivers? It's around the hairpin. Oh, all okay. Well, no, he doesn't actually. Clips the wall, and I think he's rear rights off actually there, Cam.
Yeah, I think it must be because his engine stopped, which normally happens when you lose a rear wheel. So, yeah, a bit unfortunate for him. He's going to be out of the race. He was looking to be in a really nice position as well. And I can tell you, just seen on the incident list as well, Geoffrey Fournier got a penalty, so he must have sped in the pit lane, which is unfortunate for him because he's in a really good position. And on this 3-stop strategy, they do not have any time to lose, and unfortunately, that is going to be a drive-through penalty for him.
Yeah, absolutely. So he's just serving that right now, actually, coming through the pit lane. So unfortunate for Fournier, he's going to go a lap down, actually, in this race right now and join Robin Panzer in being a lap down in this race. But yeah, Dennis Jordan still leading. These two just behind David Mocek and Ewan Simoncic. Very, very close together indeed. You mentioned about these pit boxes and the pit lane being very, very short around here. Surely, I know that it's difficult to overtake, but if you can indeed get these overtakes done, which is what Costa and Fournier are hoping for, surely the 3-stop is actually fairly viable around here, considering the fact that you don't actually lose that much more time doing a pit stop.
Yeah, so for the pit stop delta here, you actually need to do a bit of quick maths here, but it's somewhere in the region of maybe 3/10 a lap or something. Obviously, that is for the whole race. Whereas in Indianapolis last week, I believe you needed to be about 0.5, maybe 0.6 of a second quicker per lap, every lap of the race to make back the time for that pit stop. So that is why no one really tried that 4-stop strategy back in Indianapolis, but today, as you say, it might be possible, but it just depends if you've got free track. We've already had a few DNFs now, so the track is opening up a bit. You can see on the track map, there's definitely some space out there. So if you can get yourself into one of those gaps and really push, then you might be able to make it work, but we will find out. Costa at the moment is in 11th place, while needing to make the same amount of pit stops as everyone else around him. So he still might be able to get some points today, but he is behind Petter Burlak, who, as we know, hasn't had the best first stint.
Yeah, he's stuck in traffic as well. You mentioned there about being in clean air and, you know, getting your race time down, basically, and he's actually gone for it. I think at the Nouvelle Chicane, there may have been an incident between the two of them there. We'll try and get a look at that for you, but Costa has done exactly what you said not to do there, and you said get yourself in some clean air. Ricardo Costa has done exactly the opposite, I'm afraid. Here he is going, he's on board with Burlak. Here is Costa. Does he dive it? Does he misjudge it? Going into the Nouvelle Chicane, he missed. Well, it's very, very audacious if it was planned, but Burlak had no choice other than to skip across the Nouvelle Chicane on the right-hand side there.
Yeah, that was a bit of a late dive, to be honest, from Costa. Absolutely sent it. He probably was alongside just about in time, but that was a really late dive. So, yeah, I don't really know that one, but I believe how it worked out in the end with Petter just keeping that position is probably going to be absolutely fine with how that one has worked out. It was Simoncic coming into the pit lane on lap 25, as well as a car ahead of him there as well, who is that's Fournier serving his penalties. That's a bit unfortunate for him. But Simoncic here, he's got the first or last, however you look at it, pit box. So he is going to be then taking the soft tyres. Interesting. So he's going to do that strategy, as we said, where he's going to be trying to fill this gap now, but unfortunately he's got Fournier right in front of him.
Yeah, he's got Fournier right in front of him. He should jump out of the way because of blue flags. However, Tom Savelli is not that far in front. We are on lap 25 right now, by the way. That pit stop was at the end of lap 24. So this is quite early for Ewan Simoncic. And you're right, he's not really found the clean air that he was looking for in this race. Fournier pulls over to the right-hand side, and that is good news for Simoncic, but only 2.5 seconds up the road is Tom Savelli. Here's lap 25, and Dennis Jordan stays out, so does Colin Spork. We're expecting David Mocek to do the same unless he wants to cover off his teammate. And I think it's probably worth the Polish driver going on to the hard tyres once again, because he's not going to cover off Simoncic anyway. He might as well get his second hard tyre stint out of the way right now and go on the softs a little bit later. But it looks like it's going to have to be 2 27-lap stints to the end of this race for Ewan Simoncic if he wants to make the two-stop work, unless he's going for an audacious free stop, as Braxock also goes in the pit lane.
Interesting one from Simoncic there. So Braxhaw coming in maybe 1 lap early, but Simoncic coming in those 2 laps early. So he's got to add 1 lap on to each of the next 2 stints. And as you mentioned, that means you also then have to take the tyres an extra lap longer, which isn't the easiest thing in the world, as we're also getting some other pit stops. We've got Braxhaw in, we've got Satherley in as well. Braxhaw going to the softs, the mediums. Wow, the hards, and then sadly going on to the softs. And we've also got someone else in the back there who is potentially a Peter Burlak. He is in there as well. So lots of pit stops coming in around lap 26 or so, as you mentioned. But for Simoncic, he's going to have to save a tiny bit of fuel now for basically the rest of the race. It's not loads of fuel, but he'll have to save just a little bit compared to your normal laps. So we'll have to see how that one works out. But he is probably going to get the track position now from Mocek with this undercut.
Leaders into the pit lane, Dennis Jordan and Colin Spork. Dennis Jordan's just going to go past the pit boxes to get his service, and it's hard tyres for both of these guys. That's what we were expecting. Soft tyres to the end of this race, by the way, for Peter Burliak, which is help him greatly. Mocek, Siebel also in, and Simoncic, because of Savelli's pit stop, actually did get a bit of clean air here, so he should be able to jump his teammate. But Dennis Jordan and Colin Spork leave right now. Alex Siebel gets into his pit box in good time, and that will be good for him, as Mocek is still in the pit lane, as Simoncic goes out very, very well. He's miles in front actually there, and he's got the gap down to Jordan and Spork to just 6 seconds. So he's actually halved the gap to the 2 leaders. I just wonder if this is a free stop strategy from the 2-time champion, because he's gained a whopping 8 seconds on his teammate, and that surely cannot be entirely on pace.
That is an interesting one. I'm going to try and see how long short his pit stop was. And yeah, it was seemingly a 9-second pit stop. So he didn't take a full amount of fuel. However, because he pitted a little bit early, he would have had some left in the tank. And if he was saving behind Mocek, then he would have then effectively been saving more to then fill up less, if you get what I mean. So I'm not sure if this is actually an under fuel. I think he's just played the maths. Costa there goes down the inside, and he hits another car there in the chicane, and Alex Siebel then jumping over the chicane. So that's twice now that has happened to Costa.
Yeah, absolutely. It was Burliak the first time, and this time Ricardo Costa. Burliak has actually jumped Roland Zoltzook, excuse me. I don't know why I keep calling him Roland. Zoltzook, excuse me. And Danny van der Neet as well, who's now down into 11th place. So Burliak is now legitimately in the points, and that's good news for his championship charge. But we really could have a race on our hands. If Simoncic is going for a free stop, then that is going to be fantastic. But let's just wait and see. You might be right about the fuel saving and him being able to just short fuel a little bit on this one because of that fuel saving that you mentioned. Pitting a little bit early will have helped that as well. So we'll wait and see on that one. But gaps just over 4 seconds. It really does depend on what he does when he actually gets to Dennis Jordan and Colin Spork. Is he just going to drive straight past them? Is he going to go for the overtake? Or is he going to dive into the pit lane immediately and put on a new set of tyres? Because obviously if he does that, then we'll know he's on a 2-stop strategy, but on a 3-stop, excuse me. But yeah, it's going to be very, very interesting to see what he does when he gets to the back of Colin Spork.
I think this is just a 2-stop strategy, but he's just played the strategy absolutely blinding. He got those 2-3 laps undercut from Rodger as well, got himself way up the road, and I think what he's going to do now is he's going to hook onto the back of Spork and then probably save a bit of fuel to make sure that he is absolutely fine with fuel. Then he's probably going to try and do some sort of undercut situation when we get towards the next round of pit stops as well. But what he's done here with the strategy is he's got himself past Rodger, and then he's got himself, or by the time we get there, he's going to get himself up to the back of the leaders. So he's going to be going from basically just a 4th place, comfortable finish. He's now actually going to at least have the opportunity to fight for the win now. So this is going to be a fairly good strategy by SimRacing, I would say, because I don't think he's going to try the 2-stop because, you know, most people know it's not really going to work around this track doing an extra pit stop.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll wait and see what happens, but Petter Bilek right now not having too bad of a race himself, actually. He's going to be putting soft tyres on to the end of this one because he did 1 lap on the hards at the start of this race, and he's done a good 25 laps on the hards on the next stint, so he's going to be going to the end of this race on 52 laps of soft tyres, which is going to be quite good for him, actually. Tom Savely, is that Tom Savely's second stint on the... No, it's not, is it? He had hards on earlier on.
He's gone.
He's actually off the road at the Nouvelle Chicane. Oh, he's off the road, and he's got no front left wheel, I'm afraid. He looks like he's clipped the wall on the left-hand side, and that's going to be another position for the 2015 World Champion. Let's go on board with Tom Savely and find out what happened here down into the Nouvelle Chicane. It's a classic case of just turning in a little bit too early, and that is not the first time we've seen it, not the last we'll see it either.
Yes, so easy to do, really. You just turn in that tiny bit too early. You really want to actually square off that first apex, but he sort of cut into it just that little bit too much. And as you see there, just losing his wheel, and that is going to be his race over. Really unfortunate because he was on for some decent points there. But for the 2nd year in a row, he's going to be DNFing from this race. So that is not what he would have wanted to see from the New Zealander, as we mentioned. So it's, silly o'clock in the morning for him over there getting up to race, but unfortunately has ended with a DNF today. So as it stands, Burlak is already up into 8th position from all those troubles he had earlier.
Yeah, good damage limitation rather, just for the moment from Burlak, and we'll see where the rest of this race can take him. Is he going to be able to get ahead of the clearly 3-stopping Ricardo Costa? He's about 3 seconds behind Costa right now, so maybe he'll be able to get through on him soon and get into maybe 7th place, 6th place, maybe even a top 5 is possible for the Croatian here today. We'll wait and see, of course, but it's going to be a tricky race from here on in. It's not going to be a podium, I wouldn't imagine, unless things go drastically wrong for one of these 3, first of all, and some others as well. But looking back from Colin Spork right now, you can see the gap to Jonas Simoncic is coming down, but the gap to Dennis Jordan is also going out right now. So I just wonder if Jordan is seeing the threat from Simoncic behind and just turning the pace on a little bit, or if Colin Spork's maybe falling away a little bit.
The main point that I've just realised for Simoncic as well is he's going to have to take another set of hards in the final pit stop, whereas these 2 at the front are going to be taking... Oh no, they're going to be taking hards
as well, yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay. I was just thinking that they were going to be taking soft, so about a disadvantage. So actually that makes the position even better for Jonas Simoncic now, because by the end of the stint, he's going to be on the back of these guys. And then it's just a situation of when is he going to make that final pit stop? Is he going to try something crazy? Is he going to try and make a 3rd pit stop? Because the gaps behind are actually opening up quite a lot. If you add up Rodger and Siebel's gaps, very soon he's actually going to be able to have a pit stop gap to Alex Siebel. So, yeah, you probably won't think about that one. But, it's certainly going to be an interesting second half of the race for Jonas Simoncic, because he put himself in this position, but it's still a little bit up in the air of how he's going to manufacture this into him getting potentially into the race lead.
Yeah, it's going to be very, very difficult. The only way I can see him getting into the race at the moment is through aggressive overtaking, and there is almost nobody better at aggressive overtaking than Jonas Simoncic. We saw that into turn 1, actually, when he went down the inside of his teammate David Brocek and championship rival Petter Burlak, rival for many seasons now. Burlak has been up there in Well, the last 3 seasons he's been inside of the top 3 at the end of the standings. He's been around for a very long time. So has Simoncic, though, because he's been in the top 3, the top 2 for the last 5 seasons. So, yeah, take your pick. 2 absolutely fantastic drivers, but Dennis Jordan trying to upset that party at the moment. Got a couple of podiums earlier on this season. 2nd place at Silverstone. Wasn't quite able to get the win away from Simoncic on that occasion. It was a battle right down to the end, though, between those two. And, it's going to be a battle right down to the end here at the Azure Grand Prix as well. Not quite half distance just yet. 6 laps to go until we get there, and we're about to complete lap 33. It's just a question for me, really, how much fuel saving has Ewan Simoncic done, and can he get that car to lap 51? That's what he needs to do. He pitted on lap 24 to start this race. He needs to do 2 27-lap stints to get to the end if he's doing a 2-stop. If he's going for a 3-stop, then we will know about it fairly soon. But well, maybe not fairly soon, but we will definitely know about it in the next 15 laps or so. So, yeah, it's just a question of can he make it to lap 51 and what happens now, because he is on the back of Colin Spork. He's within that 1 second margin. He's going to be getting a little bit of slipstream off of him. He's going to be seeing him out front right now and just sizing him up maybe a little bit as well. Can he get through first of all, or is he just going to bite the bullet and pit in right now, go for an audacious 3-stop? I feel like this is the real crunch time for Ewan Simoncic. It's either going to be aggressive overtake or aggressive strategy move from him right now.
Yeah, it's a tricky one to decide what he's going to do because, as you mentioned, all 3 of these cars need to take hards again, which means this is Simoncic's stint of advantage. So this is where he's got the softer tyres and he's got the momentum, the mental momentum as well. He's got himself ahead of Rodger. He's absolutely flown away from Rodger. He's 12.5 seconds away now. So he's in the zone. He just now needs to decide what he's going to do. But the crucial thing is, if he can't make this 27 laps, then that means that his last stint will then have to be like 28 laps. So that will compound the issue. So I think he might just sit here for now, for a couple of laps, see what the situation is, and maybe just try and save that tiny bit of fuel. It's not loads of fuel saving to do an extra lap around here, but it is some, so he's going to have to do that at some point during this stint. But the way he's caught up, I do think maybe he's going to try and do an overtake.
We'll wait and see where is that going to be as well. The Nouvelle Chicane has been an opportunity for some, but it's also where some have come to blows with each other as well. So, yeah, that's going to be tricky. Into Portier they go, and into the tunnel, should I say. Slipstream for Simoncic. Not a great long straight, though, for him, unfortunately. Unfortunately for him. Fortunately for Dennis Jordan, though, because he has now been caught up by Colin Spork. I actually think Jordan has slowed down a little bit here and is kind of backing Spork into Simoncic almost, because if you just look at the gap to David Rodger now, that is starting to close a little bit, and I don't think Rodger has picked up the pace in the last few moments. I think Jordan's just backing off a little bit, backing up Simoncic and making sure that he can't make a pit stop without Alex Sibble getting in front of him maybe.
Yeah, bit of a weird one. Dennis Jordan, last lap of 14.3. So yeah, they've slowed down by a good at least second a lap, if not second and a half a lap for these guys. So yeah, a bit of an interesting one, but as well, as we saw, I'm pretty sure that what Ewan did in that first stint was basically sit behind Rodger and save fuel, so he effectively had to fill up less fuel at the pit stop to get to a full tank. And I think maybe that's what Jordan's doing here. He knows Ewan's in a really good position to get potentially an undercut or do something with the strategy. And also, it's in his best interest for these two to fight. And as we say that, Simoncic, he's getting the slipstream. Is he going to dive it down the inside? No, he's just going to back out of that one. But you can see what this is also doing is he's trying to make these two guys lose a bit of time by battling.
Yeah, absolutely. They are certainly losing time right now. It's giving Rodger a way back into this one. Let's not forget that the Polish driver is going to put some soft tyres on towards the end of this race. These 3 are going to be on hards, which is going to give him a big advantage, and he could be in a shot with certainly making up some positions, getting himself onto the podium maybe in this race. Simoncic now just under 3 tenths behind Colin Spork, going through turn 1. And it's a good exit from Spork, no way through into Massenet for Simoncic. So they'll go through Casino Square all in one line, even though the Edge eSports driver went a little bit wide through there. into... Oh, another look from Simoncic into the right-hander, and then the hairpin trying to go round the outside for it, just trying to get a bit of clear view, really, a bit of clear track for him to get round that hairpin, which is very, very tight, as you know, and into the tunnel they go. He is close again. Is he going to look to the inside again through the Nouvelle chicane, or is he going to stay behind for now? Spork is now aware of it, and Simoncic now looks down the inside. Oh, goodness me, this is getting close now. He's starting to probe just a little bit. He's starting to look on the back of the Edge eSports car, just getting into the mirrors of Colin Spork, getting into the mind of Spork as well. Really starting to apply the pressure, but no real move made yet.
Oh, it's getting close, and he's got to be careful because, yes, this is his advantage moment, but Spork is in the middle of two cars. If Spork then goes to try and brake late to defend, he then might hit Dennis Jordan as well. So he's really got to be careful here, is Yerne, because he doesn't want to basically end up with a pile-up with these three cars by going for a dive like that. He needs to go for it when he's certain it's going to be a move.
Yeah, he needs a decisive, clear opportunity, really. For the moment, that hasn't presented itself. They go through this downhill right-hander again into the hairpin. Oh, thought about a look down the inside here, but it's very, very difficult to go through there side by side as well. You get the feeling that somebody's going to come out without a front wing. But he does indeed attempt that one. It's a decent exit as they go under the tunnel. Spork is now definitely aware of this move that may happen into the Nouvelle chicane now. And Simoncic too far back on this occasion. So they go in again, and Simoncic continues to apply the pressure. Spork, let's not forget, has got 14 more laps of this. We're expecting those guys to come in on lap 52, which is still a long time away right now. So if this is the intensity that these guys are going to drive with for the next 14 laps, that's going to be the next 20 minutes or so, then this is going to be very, very fractious indeed for Colin Spork.
And it's going to be such a high-pressure situation for these drivers as well, because we mentioned before, you make just one tiny mistake, you're going to be in the wall. And is it really worth to battle that hard for a position here? Well, that's just going to be the what risks they want to take for that extra position, and that's the risk and reward that they have to work out. It's quite an interesting battle for these guys, and it seems like Yerne is going to be going for a dive at some point. He just needs to find the place where he's going to do it, and the hairpin might be that opportunity. He does get very close there.
He does indeed, yeah, and he does have a look down the inside occasionally there as well. As Dennis Jordan pulls away from Spork a little bit, Simoncic gets a good run. Through the tunnel they go. It's so close between the two. Spork goes a little bit defensive. He puts his car in the middle of the road. And Simoncic again looks down the inside but can't get through. Meanwhile, there is actually a car off the road. It's Ricardo Costa up at Casino Square off the road. Peter Berliak goes through and gets into 7th place. Let's have a look at what happened to the Portuguese driver. We're on board with Berliak. Costa's just off the road. He's stopped at Casino Square. Let's see what happened to him as we run up the hill. It's seemingly happened through the left-hander. Just goes a little... Oh, he goes a little bit wide, gets a slide on. Rear wheel off. Great avoidance from, I think, Braxock, who that was. But Costa, I'm afraid, out of the race after a valiant effort, especially on the strategy.
Yeah, he was going to be trying something special, and I think either way he might have been able to sneak a point there in that 10th position, at least, because obviously he was up into, I think that was 7th place. I don't know. Don't really know if it was going to work out, but yeah, he was certainly trying something different, and it's a bit of a shame that we're not going to be able to see the end of that. But that does put his teammate, Jeffrey Fournier, up into that 11th place. There's only going to be 11 cars running by the time that Costa gets down there and is overtaken by Fournier and Panzer as well. So it's been a very attritional race as we expected. But getting towards the end is always the hardest point here, or the hardest factor about this race, let alone getting it into the points.
Yeah, absolutely. We're just over half distance in this race right now, by the way. 40 laps completed as we get to the end of this one. And yeah, so just pulling away a little bit now, right now, is Dennis Jordan. Just 1 second between himself and Colin Spork, which means that Spork is going to be getting a little bit less slipstream than previously, which may open the door for Simoncic to have a go now. Let's not forget, this is only Colin Spork's 4th race in the FSR World Championship. He's put a great account of himself up there, though. Only 1 point scoring finish. That was at the last race, the first round of the Triple Crown. He's certainly putting himself in good contention to have a good run at that one. Although Simoncic looks like he'll be leading that standing at the end of this race. But yeah, Spork defending well right now. Simoncic again coming out of Portugal with a good run. And Slipstream as well. But he's nowhere near close enough for a move into the Nouvelle Chicane. There is reaching a point now where Simoncic's tyres are past their best, so to speak, and just starting to lose their edge a little bit, and the gap between the delta between the soft and the hard tyre will begin to normalise a little bit.
Yeah, certainly will. As you say, we're past that sort of peak performance, but I would say he's still in a position where he has better tyres than these hards. It's just going to be that little bit more difficult, so he really did need to make that move earlier on when he had those couple of dives down into the Nouvelle Chicane. And one time, if he gets that opportunity again, he's just going to have to, if he does want to make the position, he's just going to have to absolutely steam it down the inside of the chicane. High risk, potentially high reward, because that could be a potential for him to get this victory, because overtaking two cars with strategy, going to be very difficult, but if he gets himself into second place, he might be able to do Dennis at the next pit stop.
Yeah, I think the undercut for Simoncic is going to be a really big thing, because there doesn't seem to be a way through on track right now. It's going to have to come on strategy. We're expecting Simoncic in on lap 51, unless he's going to pit earlier than that. Although if he was doing a free stop, you'd expect him to be pitting round about now, really, and going for something a little bit different. Although it still would put him behind Alex Siebel. So yeah. I guess Dennis Jordan's job is kind of done. He's kind of been forced into doing a two-stop right now. I think you might be right. He might be able to make it on fuel, but... Well, he's in now.
No
lap 42, and Jurny Simoncic is in. He is doing something different, and that is absolutely delightful to see. A three-stop strategy from the two-time champion. What tyre compound is this going to be right now? I would suggest the hard tyres at this point, because he's going to be stuck behind Alex Siebel, I believe anyway, and it is the hard tyres for the reigning champion. Siebel's going to go past the left-hand side of your screen in a few moments' time. He's dropped off of the jacks right now. There goes last 2 weeks ago race winner, and here goes Janis Bragsock as well, getting through. So Simoncic may be caught up a little bit in the traffic, but how wonderful is it to see Jurny Simoncic doing something a little bit different to try and win this race?
I assume he's taken the viewpoint. The difference between sort of, especially with Mitch Hoyer DNFing, the difference between sort of maybe 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th isn't really going to change his championship position too much. So he's probably just seeing, I'm going to try something different, see what happens. His issue is, he's probably, assuming that he maybe underfueled the car slightly as well, he's probably going to be not catching them before they make their pit stop as well. So he might end up losing a bit of time to the cars ahead. We'll have to see how this one works out. But as you say, whoa, exciting. Oh, he goes a bit too hot into that one. But yeah, it's going to be exciting to see where he can get himself. 6th place is where he is at the moment. Same amount of pit stops left as everyone else. So probably the worst he's going to be is 6th. But how far forward can he get?
I think when these pit stops happen for these two, Dennis Jordan and Colin Sport, I think that Simoncic may well be in the lead here with the undercut, because you've got to remember, Jordan and Spork have got, nearly 20 laps on their tyres at this point, and Simoncic's got brand new ones on, so they're the same compound, and he will be catching. Also, at the end of this race, he's going to have some brand new soft tyres to overtake on. However, we haven't seen that much overtaking from anybody so far, and Simoncic is one of the very best at overtaking. He found it difficult to get through as well, so we're going to have to monitor the gap between Jordan and Simoncic, but he certainly needs a few less of those mistakes that we saw at the Nouvelle Chicane that time. That was quite close to disaster, really.
Yeah, it was, and it just got to be a bit careful now not to overcompensate and try and push a little bit too hard. He does need to push though, as you mentioned, and I can tell you his pit stop was a 14-second pit stop. So what he's done is he's done a full fuel tank now, so that when he makes his final pit stop, he'll have a very short one to fill up very little to get towards the end of the race. It'll be a nice quick one. Interesting that he's done that now, because he's now on a full tank on hard, so this is the slowest that he will be. And this is probably one of his most crucial stints. But that's just where he is with that tyre strategy as well. Not taking the hards in that second stint. So yeah, let's see what he is going to do with this one.
Yeah, pitted on lap 42. That's 36 laps remaining in this race. If you've got a full tank right now, then he only needs 10 more laps to make it to the end of the race. So it is going to be a very, very short pit stop. And I think that was a very, very smart call, actually, from the guys at Burst Esports, because he was going to come out behind Alex Siebel anyway, wasn't he? He was going to get caught up in traffic. So why not just take the full pain of a full pit stop right now, get himself into clean air, and then take that shorter stop later? Because I think with the amount that he's going to gain right now on Alex Siebel and Braxton, he might actually be able to jump them completely, get himself back into 4th place by the time he's made his final pit stop, and then he can really think about the front 3, really. So I think that was a very smart call from Burst Esports, but he's got to do the hard yards now, really. You're right, he's got a full tank of fuel on board, so he's going to be the slowest he's ever going to be around here right now. But in terms of battles, we have got Zooks and Danny van der Neet going through the hairpin there, and a classic example of just misjudging it ever so slightly. It's such a tight corner. Van der Neet nearly found himself in the outside wall there.
Yeah, got to be very careful. And a couple of corners here we saw with Noah Rovers earlier on. You just go that tiny bit wrong on the line, and then you just go wide and you can't do anything because you're already at full lock, or at a very high lock anyway. And we saw that Danny van der Neet, Zooks battling for 8th position, and already lap 46 Dennis Jordan is coming up to lap them. That is how fast these top guys have been, and you can see the those sort of gaps have spread out a little bit. 10 seconds to Mocek, 10 seconds to Alex Siebel. So these top guys have certainly been very quick, and Danny is getting well out of the way nice and early, so Dennis Jordan gets through pretty easily there.
Yeah, there's going to be a couple of cars coming through for these guys right now, so a bit of getting out of the way, and maybe an opportunity if Danny van der Neet can seize it, with Dukes having to do the same in a few moments' time. We'll hopefully see that he will do that in due course, and Colin Sport will be let through as well. But yeah, it's very, very tricky to get the cars out of the way or through, well, any of these corners really. Bit of understeer for Sport coming through the hairpin, and there goes Danny van der Neet on the right hand side. Very nice to see him getting out of the way nice and early. He has lost 4 seconds in doing that, but as I said, Zooks will have to do the same, and he has just let Dennis Jordan through into the Nouvelle chicane. So that was good driving from him as well. Van der Neet's going to try and stay as close to Spork as possible, though, to try and capitalise on Zooks letting him through, and he has caught up a fair amount, you have to say, but not quite able to get through as he wanted. Not quite able to follow Spork through there, because quite cleverly Zooks let Spork through at a point in the circuit where you don't really overtake normally anyway, so that was quite smart.
Yeah, the blue flags do come fairly early, so you do have to get out of the way a little bit earlier than you might expect, and that means it might not be in the place that you want to do it. But as you mentioned, Zooks managed to do it in a pretty nice location, and he managed to keep that position. But Danny van der Neet has been on the back of him from pretty much the start of the race, and he hasn't been able to find a way past just yet, so hopefully he can do something for his sake anyway in that final pit stop. And he's getting very close now as we come into the hairpin. I'm surprised we haven't seen more dives into here, because there's certainly the opportunity, but everyone in that hairpin at least seems to be keeping it on the side of caution.
Yeah, it's difficult to make a move work through there, really, because as we've mentioned, you're at such a high lock through there. Getting 2 cars through is very difficult because you can't really adjust as you go through, and you don't often want to adjust to give less lock into that car. You often want more, and I'm afraid these cars just don't have it. Not really designed for a circuit like this. But that's what we're racing on. About 4 laps to go until Dennis Jordan and Colin Spork come into the pit. Actually, the whole top 5 are going to be in about 4 laps time, so we'll keep an eye on that, but we'll also keep an eye on this man, because Ewan Simoncic is closing on Jonas Braxok. He is with a full load of fuel in that car right now as well, and currently running into the final sector, closing on the Hungarian in front. He's not going to catch him before Braxok has to actually pit in to the lane, so that's going to help Simoncic out nicely. But clean air is one thing, and actually having the pace is another. It's going to be very, very interesting to see where Dennis Jordan and Colin Sport come out in relation to Simoncic. If Jordan can get out in front of Ewan Simoncic, then I think there's absolutely no way that the Slovenian can win this race, surely.
Yeah, it's a difficult situation. He is since he's come out, he's been at least half a second a lap, if not about 6-7 tenths of a lap quicker than the leaders. So he's certainly going to have built a very big gap by the time that Jordan and Spork pit. He will, as you said previously, he will probably have that track position and be ahead, but then he will then need to make an extra pit stop. So then he needs to keep on going, get that gap as big as possible. But the issue is when Dennis and Colin come out, they will then have fresher tyres. So at that phase of the stint, it's going to be quite difficult for Yerne to actually be able to do anything else. But as we mentioned previously, he's going to have a very short final pit stop, and then he'll be going on to the soft tyres, if I'm not mistaken, as well. So he's going to be low fuel and soft tyres when everyone else is on old hard tyres. So it's going to flip-flop from him having the disadvantage for the next few laps, but then he'll have a big advantage in the final, maybe 20 laps of the race.
Yeah, and stand back as well, because he's going to be absolutely flying towards the end of this one, and can't wait to see how that's going to unfold. Let's not forget here that Simoncic might not be too far away from a pit stop. If he wants to even this out in terms of the tyre wear, then he might go a little bit longer because he can afford to, but yeah, he might not be going too much longer, especially if he comes out behind Dennis Jordan. But Jordan's just passed another lap car, by the way. Jeffrey Fournier gets out of the way going into Tabac, so those guys are just in that kind of zone of the racetrack, and here's Colin Spork nearly 3 seconds adrift right now, and just 1 lap to go until these guys go into the pit lane for their final stop of the day. As we've mentioned, 260 kilometres around here rather than the usual 305. Oh, Colin Spork into the wall. Rear left goes into the wall. Doesn't look like he's picked up any damage, but my goodness, has he got away with one there?
He certainly has. I think he's surely got to have a bit of damage from that one. Just a little bit, that might make his car a little bit more unstable, but that is the first sign of a little bit of a mistake, as Dennis Jordan is really starting to pull away now.
Darren Mocek also still catching, and we can't forget about him because he's going to be putting soft tyres on towards the end of this. Wow, that's impressive, isn't it? Drifting through the Lowe's hairpin there. But yeah, just to go back to my point briefly about this race being 45 kilometres shorter than normal, if you're just tuning in, the reason why we're only having 2 stop races for the most part at the Azure Grand Prix is because of the shorter distance. You can actually make it on 3 full tanks, so 2 pit stops, as opposed to the usual 3 that we see in the World Championship these days. But I told a lie last time. It's 1 more lap this time round until these guys coming into the pit lane. 52 at lap number 52, and these guys should be coming in. But yeah, Mocek is not out of this by any stretch of the imagination. 8.6 seconds between himself and Colin Spork, and his soft tyres are going to really benefit him in the latter part of this race. He's going to be very, very quick indeed.
Yeah, he is. I think he's going to be able to close that gap up. And I think Mocek is really going to be the one at the end of the race that's going to determine whether Simoncic is going to get on the podium or not. Because it depends how close Mocek can get to Colin Spork. But again, we'll have to find out that. So we're getting the final pit stops starting now. We've got Brakshock in. We've also got Petter Burlak in. And he is going on to the hards, whereas Brakshock is going on to the soft compound tyres.
Yeah, Burlak had the option of going on to the softs. He's already used 2 sets of the hard compound tyres. Maybe he's just figured that the hards are actually a little bit better over a race distance. So he's going for that. Looks like he's going to be 7th as things stand, though. Maybe nothing more than that. 6 points after the day that he's had might well be a good result, though. Certainly had the pace to be up there on the podium, but not the case. Dennis Jordan carries on for another lap. Colin Spork into the pit lane. That's a bit of a surprise, though. Dennis Jordan carries on. So he's on to lap 53, but after 52 laps, Colin Spork, the Dutch driver, is into the pit lane. It's another set of the hard tyres as we were expecting. He needs to do that unless he fancies making a 3rd pit stop. Here is the man we're all watching, though. David Mocek, soft tyres. He is going to be scarily quick towards the end of this race, and can't wait to see how he gets on. Alex Siebel as well coming into the pit lane right now. Could be a bit of an altercation here, but luckily Mocek is able to stay in for just long enough for that not to be an issue. So Spork leaves the pit lane right now. Simoncic has got just over 5 seconds on the Edge eSports driver. That means that Dennis Jordan is going to be behind Simoncic. He is going to have clean air here.
He certainly is, and Dennis is staying out, and I wonder what he is going to be doing with this one. He is gonna... I wonder if he's staying out long enough to try and fill up less fuel, maybe? We'll have to see if his pit stop is 1 or 2 seconds shorter, but he is coming in now, so he is going to have, 25 laps of fuel, I believe, he's going to have to take, whereas the likes of Spork would have had to take a little bit more. So Dennis might be saving a couple of seconds here in the pit lane as well. But the interesting point is, where is Simoncic going to be in relation to Dennis Jordan? We're going to see him there, obviously on the hard compound tyres. Yerne coming out of the final corner. We assume he's going to be ahead, which I believe he is. But how far ahead is he going to be from the German? It's actually not going to be too far, really. It's only going to be maybe a second and a half by the time they get up to speed.
Yeah, absolutely. Maybe a little bit less than that as they go up towards Massenet right now. Casino Square follows, but Dennis Jordan with a little bit newer tyres, so might be able to make some inroads right now. The gap between Spork and Jordan is now out to 5 seconds. It was just under 4 as they came into the pit lane, but maybe Spork had a little bit of a longer stop to repair damage, maybe a little bit, obviously had to put in a lap extra of fuel as well. Yeah, he's going to be doing a lot of looking behind him in this stint, I'd imagine, because Mocek is going to be bearing down on them. The question remains, though, how long is Simoncic going to stay out here? He can stay out on fuel for another 14 laps after this one, if he wants to, but I get the feeling he'll want to take the soft tyres a little bit sooner than that.
Yeah, because he wants to be on the softs as long as possible to have the biggest advantage, but he needs to stay out now as long as possible so that he gets his pit window on the track, because we're going to need to work out roughly where he's going to come out, and I believe that would be in between Mocek and Siebel as we speak, or maybe just behind Siebel actually. So he's going to need to try and get himself ahead of Siebel, and if he can ahead of Mocek, but that's going to be very difficult now that those two are on the soft compound tyres.
Yeah, it is indeed. So, yeah, where is Simoncic going to come out? That's the real question. And we don't really have any answers for the moment. Mocek gained roughly half a second on that lap, but they're getting up to speed right now. And we'll see if there really is any benefit to being on the soft tyres. I think it was very interesting to see that Petr Birek decided to go for the hards other than the softs, because he's already used 2 sets of hard tyres in this race. Doesn't have to go on to another set, but excuse me, he clearly feels that the hard tyres are actually better over a stint, and Mocek is not making that much of an impression on Colin Spork right now. I know he's starting to catch up a little bit, but maybe there isn't that much of a benefit as we think to these red striped tyres.
Well, as we saw with Yerne, he was very quick in our first 10 or so laps, and albeit he was stuck behind Colin for a couple of laps of that as well, but I think by the time you get, maybe sort of 15 laps into the stint, they are worse. So we'll have to see, as I believe Danny Van Der Neat has actually finally managed to get past Zalt Schuch. So let's have a look to see how he's managed to do this one.
Yeah, let's have a look on board with the replay. This is Danny Van Der Neat letting a Burst eSport car through, and Zooks is going to have to do the same, coming out to back into the swimming pool. Oh my word! That is fantastic from Danny Van Der Neat round the outside at the swimming pool section. I have never seen an overtake executed successfully through there. He was applying the pressure to Zooks before. The driver in front, the HM engineering driver, was forced to let a car through, and round the outside through the swimming pool section, inside for the second part. No answer for Zooks. That was so brave. Could have ended in disaster for everybody, but it was, in the end, fantastically executed.
That is bravery, but that is the opportunity that you have to wait for. Sometimes, in Danny's situation, he's been behind Zooks for pretty much 50 laps now, but he saw his one opportunity that he got that was a fairly, not really a slam dunk, but a fairly convincing overtake. He had so much more overspeed there. He just had to trust Zooks not to turn into him, and he didn't. The space was left, and Danny managed to get past. So sometimes you have to be patient, and it certainly worked off, at least this time.
Really fantastic move. He's got a long way to catch up to 7th, but he'll be pretty pleased with himself after that overtake, you can imagine. Going out of the final corner, and they're going to go over the line for another lap. They are actually a lap down, by the way. They were letting through David Mocek, who's on a bit of a charge right now, as this is Robin Panzar getting out of the pit lane and letting these guys through. And Zooks is trying to take advantage, going up the hill, nearly getting through there. These two knocking lumps out of each other at the moment. Hopefully they don't knock lumps out of their car in a moment, because that's where it's headed if they don't keep things considered. It's been a clean battle so far, though. Zook's not willing to take this one lying down, so it seems that in these battles, and we may see this a little bit later on with SimRacing trying to come through the field and Rodger as well, lap cars are actually some of those decisive things and tools that you can use around this circuit.
Yeah, it certainly is. And if I'm not mistaken, I believe it was yesterday actually, I'm pretty sure Zolt just got married actually, so congratulations to him. So yeah, good effort from him to to secure that one. But he also raced for Netrex last year, so Danny's the team manager there along with Carlos Martin. So there was obviously potentially a little bit of personal battle going on there, as well, as Zolt left for HM at the end of the 2020 season, but Danny managing finally to get on top of him there. I just wanted to take a look back actually at the front battle, and SimRacing is basically doing the same pace as Dennis, so he's not really pulling away just yet.
Yeah, but is Dennis holding something back right now, or is he on the limit? I guess there's those kind of questions we can't really answer for the moment. Yeah, it's certainly holding steady, and we're just waiting for that SimRacing pit stop. This race is really going to blow apart when that does happen. I think he's going to try and take it as long as possible here, because let's not forget, before Dennis Jordan was slowing down SimRacing so that he didn't have the option of pitting and getting out in front of Alex Siebel, which was an option for a little while, but Dennis quickly shut that one off with a little bit of slowing down, a little bit of blocking. Well, not really blocking, but just a bit of a slow of the pace, and he was able to put SimRacing in a situation where he couldn't do that anymore. I just wonder, that's not the case right now. Obviously, SimRacing is going all out, but I'm just trying to do the maths in my head, really. It's quite difficult to work out. I'm not entirely sure if he's going to get out ahead of Siebel at this rate, but I think he might just about be able to.
With how short his pit stop is going to be, I think he might. I think his pit stop's going to be a lot quicker than what we're going to be expecting. I think he's only going to be stationary for about 6-7 seconds, when they're normally stationary for a full pit stop is about 14 seconds. So I think he might, as it stands, be able to get out ahead of Siebel, because Siebel's doing the same lap times as him at the moment as well. So I do wonder when Yerny's going to, finally come in, because he's not really gaining time staying out there at the moment. When he pits for those softs, that's where he's going to be gaining the time. As always, I think he just touched the wall there a little bit as well. So I don't think it's actually going to be too long before he's going to come into this, in for this final pit stop, because he definitely pitted too early to get towards the end of the race. So we are 100% expecting him to be making a pit stop fairly shortly.
Yeah, to my calculations, he's 10 laps short, which means he can go another 9 laps if he wants to right now. And pit on lap 68. I think that's the limit for him, but surely he'd want to come in a little bit earlier than that. I think there is a little bit of, as well, wanting to make sure he can push the entire time on the soft compound tyres, because, they don't last forever, and the edge just get taken off them after a certain point. So he's kind of making sure that moment comes as late as possible in this race. He wants to keep those tyres in good nick for as long as possible, and I think staying out might be the way to do that. So even though you might think that you want to spend as long as you can on these soft compound tyres, and that is true to an extent, but you also don't want them falling off the cliff.
Yeah, you don't want the tyres falling off the cliff, absolutely, because then you'll just start losing time hand over fist, and you don't really sort of have the buffer to be able to do that. And I'm really surprised that Yerny's staying out here, because, as I mentioned, he's not really gaining anything now. Siebel is doing the same time as him. Rodger's actually a little bit quicker on the previous lap as well. So he's sort of in a bit of this weird limbo phase. But I think his real goal is trying to get out ahead of Siebel, because in that case, he would be 4th behind Rodger, which is where he was before that first pit stop, where this all started to happen. So in that case, he's a net 0. So that's really going to be his main goal at the moment.
Yeah, you might be thinking at home then this is that, fourth's not where he started at all. He was in third. He was behind Jordan and Spork, but you've got to remember at the end of the first stint, he was stuck behind Mocek, was tired of all that at the end of lap 24. Figured that if he's just going to do a two-stop with everybody else, he's going to follow Mocek for the entire race, and he's not going to be able to get through. So pitted at the end of lap 24 instead of lap 26, as opposed to his teammate. Did a bit of a short pit stop, and then pitted again on lap 42, which has given him this strategy situation that we're in right now. And you're absolutely right. If he ends up in fourth place, then I guess it's he's not really lost anything. He's tried. He cannot say that he hasn't tried in this race, and he's not actually lost anything in this one. It's important to remember that he's still going to be making big strides in this championship. Michi Hoyer is out of this race after an incident on lap 1 up the hill towards Massenate. He's going to be scoring a fat 0 on this particular race, I'm afraid. Stimicic looks like he's on for 12 points at the moment, which would extend his championship lead to 21 points. Alex Siebel would also be losing points. Dennis Jordan would be the only one really gaining them. 13 at the moment, it's looking like it's going to be, which means he'll be on 31 points behind Simoncic, and he may well move up to third place. That's an absolutely dream day for Dennis Jordan as things stand.
Yeah, he's had a funny season, hasn't he? He did this last season as well. Some races he's at the front, challenging for the podium, challenging for the win. And then some races he's down in sort of 10th position. It's a very weird one with Dennis, but a very good driver, very calculated driver. He loves the numbers, loves working things out. And nailing that lap or pole position is obviously the most important thing as Simoncic comes in. So this is end of lap 62. So it's going to be 16 laps for him on these soft compound tyres. But where does he come out?
Yeah, that's the massive question right now. Where is Alex Siebel in relation to Jone Simoncic? Colin Spork is already past him. Soft compound tyres, as you might be able to expect. David Mocek goes past the left-hand side of him as well. Where is Jone Simoncic going to be in relation to Siebel? He's already moving. He's already out of the pit lane right now. He's on the right-hand side, as you can see. He's even in front of that lap car that you can see there. So a fantastic strategy from Jone Simoncic, executed very well indeed. He's got himself 1.7 seconds in front of 2 weeks ago's race winner.
Yeah, and as I predicted, 6 seconds was his time on the pit stop. So that was way quicker than what we really were expecting. And that has meant he's easily got out ahead of Alex Siebel and crucially ahead of that back marker as well. So he lost no extra time. And he now needs to chase down David Mocek. 8 seconds, so half a second a lap. At least he needs to be quicker than Mocek, plus getting an overtake. Let's see how this one works out. But remember, he was in 4th place before he tried this strategy earlier on in the race, which means he hasn't really lost anything so far in terms of points. But he will now have at least the ability to try and gain, but Mocek is also on the soft, so let's see what he can do.
Yeah, absolutely. Mocek's not really gaining on Colin Spork either. It's 3.5 seconds, 3.7 seconds, kind of in that region right now. The gap was 9 seconds as the pit stops ended at the end of lap 52. So 12 laps have passed nearly right now, and 5 seconds have come down, so not quite half a second a lap, is it, between those two? And that's the gap between the soft and the hard compound tyres, let's not forget. I really was expecting Mocek to be a lot quicker and get onto the back of Spork a lot quicker in this race, but he's really not been able to do that. I don't know if that's a reflection of the pace shown by Spork or Mocek, or if that's just the fact that the soft tyres aren't really that advantageous. We'll have to wait and see what Simoncic begins to do.
Yeah, I mean, Mocek was still 0.6 quicker on the previous lap, so it's not like he's slow, but he was obviously quite a way behind. He was a good 10 or so seconds behind, wasn't he? So there was certainly quite a lot of ground for him to make up. And is he going to be able to do that? At 6/10 a lap, he should be able to catch Spork. But will he be able to overtake? And then at the same time, Simoncic is going to be catching him as well. So let's see what Simoncic is going to do. We're going to have to wait till he comes around, because obviously the previous lap included. And yes, an 11.2, so 1.3 seconds quicker than David Mocek. That is easily enough if he can keep that up.
Yeah, if he can keep that up. I think that's a very, very important line to add to the end of that. A bit of a caveat to add to that sentence, because you really do dance on a knife's edge around here. You cannot make a mistake, and these tyres are going to fall away. Motec did catch Spork fairly convincingly on the last lap as well. 2.6 seconds between those two right now as well, and if Spork ends up having two soft-tyred burst eSport cars right behind him for the rest of this race, he is going to be absolutely eyes on stalks for the end of it, because it's just going to be quite a lot to comprehend, really. He's on the verge of his first ever FSR World Championship podium in only his 4th ever race here. He's done a fantastic job so far since joining the championship at the Dutch Grand Prix about a couple of months ago. But if he manages to finish on the podium here, he really is going to have earned it.
Yeah, he will indeed. But he's got Motec really catching him up now. You can see him. He's only 2 seconds behind. On the previous lap, he was 1.1 seconds a lap quicker. So Motec, I think, has actually also seen the charging SimRacing behind, and I think he's starting to push just a little bit that this second place might be up for grabs. So this is a good opportunity for Spork, but it's going to be very difficult. He was able to hold off that pressure from Yanni SimRacing earlier on in that middle stint, so he's certainly got some experience with having that pressure, but now this is it. This is the crunch time of the race. This is where the points are actually going to be given at the end of the race. Although it goes a bit deep there, maybe that's just a sign that he's making a mistake here or there. But I think he might just be able to hold on. Although he's got a tyre deficit now, so that's going to make it even more difficult.
It is indeed. I think Motec has definitely been saving his tyres for this moment. That's why he wasn't catching too quickly earlier on Colin Spork, but now he is starting to bring that gap down. 1.6 seconds as they come out of the final corner for the 66th time of asking. 12 laps to go for these guys. They come over the line again. SimRacing 4.7 behind his teammate, just goes up to 5 as they go through turn 1. He is on a mission right now, but so is Motec. They both want a podium. All 3 of these guys want a podium, but only 2 of them are going to be able to manage it, with Dennis Jordan 8.5 seconds up the road. Barring incident or accident, he's going to win the Azure Grand Prix.
Oh,
well, the battles are going to be behind. That could be a curse, but you never know.
Yeah, big words to say there. With still, I should say, 12 laps to go. So let's hope for his sake that he can hold on. But he's now got an 8.5 second lead. He's really starting to pull away. Colin's pace has dropped off just a little bit, which is a little bit worrying, considering with the amount of laps to go, because that's, you know, if he's sort of used the best of the tyres already, then that's just going to be a snowball situation, and Motec is almost within a second.
He is indeed. I'm not entirely sure if it's down to Motec's driving or Spork just looking in the mirrors a little bit, because it's up to 9 seconds now, the gap to the leader, and it continues to go out. Spork not quite having the pace of Dennis Jordan as he did, especially in the first stint, in the soft tyre stint. Spork was right there with the German, but not quite able to stay there throughout the race. So he'll be a little bit disappointed with that, but I think he'll be delighted with the podium still. No traffic for these guys involved either. Petter Berliak will be the next man in traffic, but he's just coming out of the Nouvelle Chicane right now, and they're heading out of Casino Square. So no traffic to speak of. No traffic to disrupt this battle. Only 7 cars on the lead lap at the moment, and only 11 cars still running. Robin Panzar, the last of them, running out there still in hopes of maybe grabbing a point with an accident for somebody out front. But we'll have to wait and see if it happens. Motec now is definitely within the zone. He is filling the mirrors of Colin Spork in front. We have a nose-to-tail battle for second place, and we have a feeling that they are going to be joined by a third driver. SimRacing just 3.5 seconds adrift right now, so Spork's 10 laps of pressure just about to begin, really. It remains to be seen whether he's going to crack under this pressure or whether he's going to rise to the challenge or not.
Yes, this is the crunch time. Motec is there now. What is he going to do? 10 laps as well, so a decent amount of time, actually, decent amount of opportunities for Motec to be able to try and get this overtake, but at the same time, SimRacing is closing in 8/10 on the previous lap, so it won't be too long before he's going to be on the back. At that pace, that's going to be about another 4 laps till he gets there, so he's not going to have too many laps, actually, to try and make an overtake, but he's going to be in a situation where he might actually be able to get these both of these cars if he plays his cards correct. But it's going to be a really tough dash right at the end of this race.
It is indeed. These guys are Burst eSport teammates Mocek and Simoncic, so they will play nicely with each other, but you don't expect there to be any team orders down there at Burst. There often isn't, especially in FSR. We have seen team orders from them recently in other leagues, but that's a different issue entirely, really. Yeah, Mocek, good race for him so far. Wasn't expecting a podium performance from him, actually, but he's already had one so far this season back at the Dutch Grand Prix. Managing to get up in second place. Looking for second place again right now. If he can get through on Spork and hold off on Simoncic. To be fair, if I was Mocek here, I'd want to get through on Spork before Simoncic got there, but I don't think he's going to have the chance to do that.
Yeah, the team orders situation that you mentioned, I mean, obviously it's a bit of a different situation because it's a lot earlier in the season than the other situation was. And also, Yerne is, especially with Hoyer DNFing, he's going to have a fairly comfortable lead. So it's not like he absolutely 100% needs these extra few points. And at the end of the day, I can tell you, Mocek is 100% fighting for his own position here. And he's also in a different team to Yerne in the Constructors as well. So from that point of view, he's going to be definitely fighting to see what he can do himself. And he hasn't got many podiums to his name, has Mocek, so if he can get second place, he'll be very happy with that indeed. And as the laps count down, and as Yerne gets closer to him, I don't think he's going to be doing any sort of manoeuvres to help Yerne.
Well, Spork is going to want this podium quite badly as well. As I mentioned, it's only his 4th race in the World Championship. He's only managed to finish in the points once so far in his 3 races. So the podium would be completely above his expectations and his aspirations for this race, and especially at the Azure Grand Prix, set up of course by a great qualifying performance which nearly saw him take pole, but he was denied by a 10th by Dennis Jordan, who's still leading. There's 8 laps to go as these guys are on this one right now, about 7.5 really, coming to the bottom of the circuit right now. Mocek still on the back of Spork, not able to get through. 11.5 seconds to the leader. Simoncic is there now. He's going to start to apply the pressure to Mocek as well. How aggressive is he going to be, though?
Actually, is Mocek going to have a bit of a go here? He's getting the slipstream actually a little bit far, but he's really now getting into that slipstream. He's getting into that sort of 5-6 car lengths behind where you really get the big slipstream. And if he gets that correct, he's going to be able to have a go. We have seen Spork, though, being able to defend fairly comfortably as we get down to that chicane, but Simoncic was right on the limit and still able to pull out of that situation. So I think if he sent an absolute full risk move, he might not have been able to do so. But Simoncic is now completely on this battle, and it seems that Spork is really starting to struggle with the pace.
Mocek with a slide coming out of turn 1 there. Simoncic not close enough to capitalise, but you definitely get the feeling that the pressure's on in this group right now. These 3 fighting over the 2 remaining podium spots, but there's not enough to go around, I'm afraid. One of them is going to have to miss out, and Simoncic is going to try and make sure that it's not him. They go into the hairpin, absolutely nose to tail, nearly pushing each other around the corner. Spork on the hard tyres, defending from 2 soft-tyred cars behind him. Burst eSport cars as well. So, you know they are going to be very, very quick indeed. Mocek again closes, but not close enough. That was very close through the Nouveau chicane. We've seen how cars really disintegrate when you clip that wall on the inside line. Mocek was playing with fire there.
Yeah, he absolutely was. That was a squeaky bum moment, as we should say. But now Yerne is right on the back of him. I think Yerne is more likely actually to overtake David than David is to Colin. The issue is that David's so close, he's getting a bit of slipstream, and that's going to make it that little bit easier. Also, there isn't really the room. Simoncic, just like in that second stint, he's basically behind the third in a 3-car train. So if he sends one down to Mocek, he's got to be careful that he doesn't then hit Colin either, because they're just so close together. And it is getting to that part of the race now. 5 laps to go, and he's going to need to take some risks if he wants to get on the podium.
He is indeed. Oh, he's so close into the hairpin. nearly rear-ended his teammate there as they go through Portier on the seafront right now. Is there going to be a run out into the chicane? Not really. Rocek is applying the pressure as well, though, and it's hard to get through in this situation. Let's see. Simicic touched the wall there through the tunnel. We're not seeing things. Not entirely sure. But Rocek still in the middle of this train. He may well settle for third at this point. He may well settle for a podium. And Simicic is falling back a little bit. 7/10 of a second, so he's not close enough right now. But 5 laps to go when they get to the line here. And it's going to be so close with these guys. Going to have to be aggressive if there is indeed going to be a move. On board with Sport right now. Rocek with not a great exit out of the final corner. Simicic tries to get on turn. Rocek with a little bit of a skip across the curb, and Simicic is going to gain a little bit, but he's not close enough just for the moment. And it's also a question. Oh, that's a slide through. Massenet really pushing hard, but for Simicic also, he's the only one of these three with a real red-hot chance of winning this championship. We've got 5 rounds to go after this one. Michi Hoyer is not going to be finishing. Does he really want to risk everything for the sake of 3 points here?
Yeah, it's a difficult situation, but it's also not just about the points. It's about the fact that they're right there in front of him as well. They're so close. It's a very high pressure situation to decide what to do, and I'm sure they'll be speaking with their engineers, trying to work out what the best risk is or not that they're going to take. And Rocek now touching the wall there as well. They're really starting to get to the limit.
They really are getting to the limit, and sometimes over it as well. You saw there, we're on board with Simicic. There's a dive into Raskas. It's so narrow through there, and Rocek wasn't prepared to give him the space. Simicic back out, and so he ruins his chances of going for it into turn 1. There may be a run into Massenet if the run is good enough out of the first turn. Rocek not strong through there right now, and Simicic is going to get slipstream, but let's not forget his teammate in front also has slipstream. He looks to the inside line through the left-hander, but there's no way through. He's starting to run out of laps here.
Yeah, Yerne's looking at every single gap now. He knows this is the time if he wants to get both of these drivers, but he's got to play it smart. He can't go for a move that's then going to risk damage or any sort of extra penalty as well, that sort of stuff, because as you say, is it really worth that 3 points? Maybe not, if you're going to be talking about that, but he's just lost a bit of time there. So that's going to be another opportunity gone, because he's not going to be able to send it down the inside into this chicane. But it looks like Yerne he's up for a fight. He's up for a bit of a dive. It just is a case of where is it going to be, as we've only got a couple of laps to go now.
Yeah, 3 laps to go when we get to the line, but as long as he doesn't get through here, Simicic is absolutely perfect for Connors Sport right now, because he's taking the pressure away from him and applying it to David Rocek. But obviously if he does get through here, then there is going to be a fair amount of pressure on him as well for second place right now. On board again into turn 1, he closed it up massively, and they go through nicely together, but it's a bit of a slide from Simicic. He's so close, tucked under the rear wing of his teammate. Is he going to go for the inside line? Rocek covers the middle of the road, which gives Simicic absolutely nowhere to go. There's no way through for him at the moment, and look at the breathing space Colin Spork is getting because of this now.
Oh, so I thought he was going to dive it down the inside of the hairpin there. He was thinking about it. He got really aggressive on the throttle out of Mirabeau, but not quite close enough. Lap 76 of 78, running out of chances. And it's such a difficult situation for Yerne to be in. He's going to have to absolutely send it to try and make this overtake. Is the risk going to be worth it? But Rocek seems like he's actually opening the door in a couple of areas now. So I think there is going to be at least one opportunity for Yerne to dive it. It just depends if his instinct tells him to go for it.
Yeah, absolutely. Is he going to risk everything? We've mentioned it before, but there's not many points up for grabs here. Only 3 points. If it was for a race win, then it may well be worth it. But is it worth it for just a podium? Oh, big slide out of the final corner. 2 laps to go as they go over the line. Lap number 77. Looks down the inside into turn 1. No way through there. It's a good exit from turn 1 for Rocek this time. And Simicic is not as close as he was last time. Wasn't able to make the move last time. Not able to make it this time either. Wow, that's a big save from Rocek. Look at the way he was wagging the tail through that corner at the top of the hill. But he holds on to it well. Simicic will have had his heart in his mouth there as well, you can be sure.
Oh, that is... They're getting so close. Rocek almost losing it through Massenet as well. That would have been a pretty big crash. We saw someone do that earlier. Oh, he's had a bad exit. This is the opportunity. This is where SimRacing needs to send it. If he's going to do it, this is the chance that he's going to have. Left or right, he's going to have to go around the outside. This is going to be a big balls move on the outside. Rocek needs to leave in the space. SimRacing gets around that yellow anti-car on the outside. They're going to have a bit of contact. And now, once again, on the outside of Tabak, is he going to be able to make it? Rocek once again needs to leave in the space. Oh, he goes into the wall.
Oh, he's got away with it. Somehow he's got away with it. And he's got the position as well. He's absolutely stolen the podium away from Rocek. That is unbelievable. From Ewan around the outside at Tabak. How on earth have those guys kept it out of the barriers through those corners going side by side at the circuit d'Azur? I can't believe what I've just seen between those two. Let's get a replay of that one for you into the Nouveau chicane. Simicic right round the outside. He gave Rocek the room and then Rocek returned the favour through those parts of the chicane and then round the outside of Tabak. It's always going to be very, very close. Rocek had a slide of his own going on the way in there. They were bound to come into contact. They did in the end, but Simicic is able to steal the position. He runs away with it as well. He looks like he's going to finish third with Colin Spork running away with the second at the moment just in front of them. But running away from everybody right now is Dennis Jordan. 16.5 seconds is the margin between himself and Colin Spork. He's coming through the final couple of chicanes right now. It's only his second season in the FSR World Championship. However, it's going to be his second victory already. Dennis Jordan out of the final corner. He's going to win the Azur Grand Prix by a comfortable margin. Colin Spork looks like he might just about hold on to second here from Ewan Simicic, who's charging and he's trying to head down the inside into Raskas. He nearly went for the all-in lunge, but not quite on that occasion. A couple more laps and he might have been able to do it, but Colin Spork holds on for a fantastic second place ahead of championship leader Ewan Simicic, who extends his lead in the championship ahead of Mitzi Hoyer, Alex Siebel, Dennis Jordan and the like. Rocek comes home fourth ahead of Siebel. Braxtock is going to be sixth here ahead of Berliak, who recovers to seventh. But what a fascinating and exciting Azur Grand Prix that was, Cam.
That was an unbelievable finish to it. And Yone had nothing to lose with the position that he was in, as it turns out. That three-stop seemed to work magically for him. Had to work for it though, but that little mistake from Rocek on the exit of Portier out into the tunnel, I just knew that was going to be his opportunity. Rocek made it difficult, but they just about left each other enough room. And certainly a very tense race, but seemingly actually some of the drivers at the top of the game managing to hold on to it, and those two burst drivers at the end giving each other just enough room, which is exactly what you want to see.
Absolutely. What a fantastic race that was. You could be forgiven for thinking that this race wasn't going to be the most exciting this season with the lack of overtaking that we're likely to see around here, but it was anything but boring. It was had strategic intrigue all throughout the race, even on-track battles as well right at the end. And Simicic even gave it a go on Spork into Raskas on the final time there, which was quite remarkable to see. But Dennis Jordan ends up winning it, and he is going to move up into fourth place in these standings, by the way. Mitchie Hoyer is going to be a good, 34 points behind, so he's going to drop a fair few points there because of Simicic's overtake right at the very end. We're going to have a look at the final standings of that race before we move into the interviews with Dennis Jordan, Colin Spork and Ewan Simicic all finishing on the podium. Here are your final results though. It was Dennis Jordan who wins by 16.5 seconds ahead of Colin Spork. Ewan Simicic third, just edging out his teammate David Mocek. Alex Siebel fifth, Janis Braxtock in sixth ahead of a recovering Peter Berliak, who was the last car on the lead lap in seventh. Danny van der Neek finished in eighth ahead of Zolt Zooks after their fantastic battle through the swimming pool as well. And Jeffrey Fournier picks up his first point of the season in 10th. That's it for the racing of the Azur Grand Prix, but we're going to speak to the top three drivers after the race. First of all, Dennis Jordan, who ends up winning it. It's a pole to victory for you, pretty much led every lap as well, apart from a few with Simicic ended up leading, But let's go back to that qualifying lap. It must have been a pretty special from where you were at. How did it feel in the car? How was your qualifying session?
Well, honestly, I think I just got lucky. I don't think the lap was anything special. I know that a lot of other guys could have gone a lot faster than that, so I guess they just didn't hook up the lap and I got in Probably also not my best lap, but relatively clean lap and was enough. I was a bit surprised, but yeah, it's having pole position here in Monaco. Azure, sorry. Helps a lot.
There's the first one of the day. Me and Cam have been trying hard, but anyway, it doesn't matter. Speaking of the race, as I mentioned, you led most of the laps throughout it. You had Spork and Simoncic for some points as well, very close behind you. But also, we did notice you slowing down a little bit throughout the middle of the race. What was the managing of the race like? What was the strategy kind of like for you throughout the race?
Well, yeah, I mean, for Spork, I mean, in the first stint, I just saved fuel so he couldn't underfuel and jump me in the pits. I always had, still 1, 2, sometimes 3 laps left in the tank when we pitted. So I just wanted to secure that. But yeah, Yanni obviously was not so much danger for me, but a lot for my teammate Alex. So when we saw that he was on the 3 stop and he could potentially come out ahead of him after his, I believe, 2nd stop, I don't know. Like we just decided that I would slow down for a couple of laps just to make sure that he wouldn't. But yeah, unfortunately, wasn't enough.
Yes, indeed. But you managed to take the victory in the end anyway by a comfortable margin as well. So congratulations, and thanks for talking to us as well.
Thank you.
Moving on to Colin Spork in 2nd position. As I've said throughout the stream here tonight, it's only your 4th race here in the FSR World Championship, but you've already managed to pick up yourself a podium. You must be absolutely delighted. How are you feeling?
Hey guys, yeah, I mean, it's a great feeling to be this quick already, and after just a few races to be on the pace with all these guys, it's yeah, it feels amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. I can imagine, certainly. You didn't have an uneventful race either. You had Simoncic and Rocek behind you at the end. You had Simoncic behind in the middle stint of your race as well. So, how was the defending around this circuit? How was it having cars so up close behind you?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think I look more in my mirror today than on track actually. But I mean, beginning of the 2nd stint, I was in like the 1st stint was just good. I was doing the same as Dennis, just saving fuel, trying to stretch a gap to P3, because I think we were like I was almost like bumping him into the pit lane. And then coming out of the pits at the 2nd stint, I was losing a bit in the 1st bit, but I just kept the tires a bit calm, and then I won a bit of time. And then Jerne was behind me on the softs. I knew that he underfueled a bit, so I saw that Dennis was slowing down a bit, but it was really hard to like keep the Jerne behind. I was lucky that I had the slipstream actually from Dennis, because with a low fuel tank and softs, it was really hard to keep him behind. But because of that, I smoked my tires a bit on every acceleration point to like have a big enough of a gap. So in the end, I was struggling a bit, and I lost a bit to Dennis. Got damaged in one point because I had a bit of a snap of oversteer. And then this 3rd stint, I knew that Dennis was just way too far ahead at the point, and I knew that I wasn't able to catch up. So I was just saving fuel and saving tires. So I was able, if Dawit and Jerne would catch up, I would be able to just like go flat out on the tires and don't need to worry about anything. But yeah, I mean, Dennis had a great race, amazing job by him, amazing pace.
Yeah, absolutely, and not too bad from yourself either, to be fair. 2nd place, and congratulations to you on that one. Thanks for talking to us as well after the race.
Thank you, guys.
Finally, moving on to Jure Simoncic, 3rd place for you today. I guess there is only one place to start, really. With the very final few laps of that race, you had a great battle with David Mocek, applying the pressure the entire time. Just talk us through the lap where you finally managed to get through with that fantastic move around the outside at Tabak, eventually getting you through.
Yeah, there is not much to be said about it. I needed some lucky moment or unlucky moment from David. He slided the rears out of the last corner before the tunnel, so I could have got a run on him, and I knew that I could outbrake and get side by side into the chicane. And afterwards, I just tried to keep on track and try to keep as much space as possible to David. And in the end, it ended with a bit of contact, but I think it was just like probably some understeer from David, and still outside of Tabak, it's not a usual move, so nobody really knows how the car will behave on a certain line and a certain angle. So I'm just sorry for David. I would wished he gets the podium, but in the end it's racing, and I needed to go for it.
Yeah, absolutely. Getting through in the end. But I want to ask you a little bit about the strategy as well, because that move was kind of forced upon you by the strategy that you undertook. You ended up going for a free stop. A couple of others did attempt it further back, but nobody up towards the front really went for it along with you. So was that a strategy call that you made on the road? Did you decide midway through the first stint that, right, I'm going to go for a free stop strategy here, or did you plan it before the race?
Before the race, I thought that surely I start P1 or P2, and then I just do either 2 or 3 stops, probably 2, but maybe 3. But then in qualifying, obviously, I found some invisible debris and took off in the middle of the road on what would be surely at least P2 lap. So please fix the game. But otherwise, I knew that there is no other option. I had to try. Otherwise, I would be behind David for the whole race, potentially getting undercut by other 3 stoppers. And there was no way to catch P1 and P2. So I had to try. It worked out in the end.
Yeah, it did in the end. It was a good overtake from you and a good strategy as well. And final thing that I want to ask you about was the kind of incident into turn 1. It ended up with Burlak having no front wing in the end, you diving down the inside of Mozart. There was absolute chaos behind you, but what was the start like from your perspective?
I was happy to have really good initial launch. I saw that it would be P4 for sure. And then I just positioned my car towards the inside just to see if I can capitalize on anything. I did not really thought about, I did not thought in forward to go for the move. But then David lifted so early that I instinctively just went for the gap. It was there, so I didn't get a cut or anything. I might have touched the bollard a little bit, which was not what RD asked us to do. So that's why I lifted and led David through on the run to turn 3 or turn 2 or whatever. But I'm so sad for the team. Robin had really good result in qualifying. He was just behind and got tangled in the incident. And also for Michi, not really best result, but well, that's how it is.
Yeah, it was chaos behind you, to be fair. A couple of your guys getting caught up, but avoiding it all in the end. Congratulations on P3 today, Ewan, and thanks for talking to us as well after the race.
Thank you, guys.
There we have it, the driver interviews, the podium interviews after the race, and one final word from Cam as well before we leave you tonight. I really enjoyed that, I have to say, Cam. I think unexpected good races are actually better than expected good ones, to be honest. I wasn't expecting too much from this race, but it really did deliver for us.
Yeah, very glad that Yone tried something different there with the 3 stops. Certainly mixed up that final stint, which is what we want. But, Dennis had such good pace out the front. Anyways, he deserved the win, but it's good to see, at least for the podium, there was a really good fight. And in the championship, you can see Michi Hoyer there having 3 wins back-to-back. And in the next 4 races, he's only got 17 points. So that has now left him with quite a big gap to Yone at the front there. What's that, about 24 points? So decent gap there for Yone at the front, but it is not over. There's still 5 races to go, so still plenty can happen with that win from Dennis Georgian as well. He's got himself up into 4th place, only 1 point behind his teammate Alex Siebel. So I think we're looking very good for a nice finish to the season with the next 5 races. Obviously, next time out, we will be heading to wonderful Le Mans circuit, which is a bit of an interesting one for this style of racing to conclude the Triple Crown.
Yeah, not seen an open wheel race around Le Mans ever, really. So I'm looking forward to that. We'll see how it goes, but make sure you join us 3 weeks' time. 20th of June, we will be going racing for the French Grand Prix. 5 rounds to go in our 2021 championship. And Lewis McGlade will be back joining us for that one in 3 weeks' time. I've been Ewan O'Leary. I've been alongside Cam Rodger for this Azure Grand Prix. it's been absolutely fascinating from start to finish. I hope you guys have enjoyed it at home as much as we've enjoyed bringing it to you. But until the next race,